morning, everyone. This is our commissioner retreat. It is October 3rd, 9:02 a.m. Going to go ahead and call this meeting to order and ask our clerk to do the roll call.
Commissioner District 1, Randy Netherland.
I'm here.
Commissioner District 2, Kevin Schutte.
Here.
Commissioner District 3, Sharon Trask.
I'm here. And we'll move on down to item number 3 for public comment. Do we have any public that would like to comment? Anybody in the Zoom room?
Can you see this?
Nope. I'm trusting you.
It's not my imagination.
Okay, all right, well, let's move on to item number 4. And we'll start with community development. So actually, Mark, can you kind of give us a heads up of what to expect today?
I can. Sorry, I was just texting my other directors that I'm here. So today, this is our Commissioners Retreat or Commissioners Workshop. So it's an opportunity for your departments to come and talk about the goals that we set back in 2022 for 2023. So we'll give you an update on those things that we were able to accomplish in 2023, as well as defining goals for 2024. So this isn't budget per se, but it kind of gives you a work plan for how we progress through 2023 and what we're looking at establishing goals for 2024. So if the board has things that they would like to see on the list that they don't see on the list, now would be a good time to mention those things. So we are kind of cram-packed. We have a ton of information that we've provided in the packets. Those should be available online if individuals want to view those things. But today we're going to have each director go through their individual departments and talk about their goals and what we want to set for 2024.
Great, thank you. All right, so let's move on to, because I do know that we have a very full day this morning and this afternoon. So let's move on to community development. Kel, take it away.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yep, and I have the extra sheet at the bottom. As Mark pointed out earlier, it wasn't in the correct format. So last year, 2023, some things that we talked about were starting to provide monthly reports on permitting to the board. And so I started doing that. Just wanted to know if there's any feedback or if you guys have, a different format that you'd like to see, or if that's working. It seems like the permit turnaround times are kind of the most interesting for the board. So we'll continue doing that, and I'm always open to suggestions if there's, if you want to see that differently or add, additional stuff. We also had the scanning project, so that's underway, and we expect to continue that, and I just briefed about that in more detail yesterday, and that's a project that will continue through the end of 26. We also, I had a staff that was working on the capital facilities plan, and has continued to do that and just took it to the Planning Commission last month. So you'll be hearing more about that. And we are also having the consultants, SCJ Alliance, that we just went under contract with for the 2024 or 2025 comprehensive plan update. They'll be helping us with the overall capital facilities element, in addition to the capital improvement program, which is a 6-year piece of that, otherwise 20-year lookout for capital facilities. So for 2024, one of the major things is the comprehensive plan update. That's a 2-year process, so we're beginning at the end of 2023, all through 24, and then it is due to the state in June of 25. So we expect to be working with the consultants on that program, community, internal folks throughout the year, the 2 years. We've also spent time on short-term rental regulations, some research on that. And once the consultants start with the comprehensive plan and get that up and going, the long-range staff will be working more intensely on the short-term regulations. She does plan on sending out notification to all the waterfront property owners, because that's where we found that most of the short-term rentals exist, although they are kind of scattered throughout the county. Just as a heads up about that process and what that's going to look like, and that the board is considering regulating short-term rentals. I did have Title 14 amendments. That's the 2021 building code update. We have done that, so that we were prepared to start that in November of this year. It's been delayed until March of 2024. So we're just prepared, so folks have additional time to get permits in under the 2018 code, and they could expect anything that comes in after March 15th, 2024, that it will be the plans will need to be prepared under the 2021 code.
Are you hearing from builders about the new code? Are they concerned?
There was some concern on, that I've heard through Todd, our building official, regarding like manufactured homes. So, you know, they're manufactured, they're prepared, and so those that have already been completed don't meet the 2021 code. I think that's part of what the delay was. And so, yeah, there's also been some stuff about the WUI, the Wildland Urban Interface. And so Todd's following that more closely, but, and I certainly have him reach out to you on more details about what those things are, but I think it was a lot of the manufactured homes issue and WUI code.
I was hearing the same thing.
Yeah.
I was showing the manufactured homes, the dealers out here are really sweating.
Right, because it would be,
And I don't know if there's an option that we can do to alleviate that tension, but every one of them, every dollar makes a difference.
also at the end of this year, Michael McSems, who is our subdivision and FPA forest practice planner, he is retiring at the end of this year. We do have an internal person, Luke Viscuzzi, who is taking over that position. So but we will be filling Michael's position for 2024. Likely someone to work on a short-term rental program. We expect at the beginning that might be a full-time job to get it up and going. But Luke will be taking that over, and I have had Michael work, because Michael's been in that position he's been here over 30 years, but he's been in that position for over 20. And so, and he's the only planner that does that work. And so he's been working on a procedurals manual and updating that, and it sounds like that was completed already. So I was happy to hear that. And Luke is already starting in mid-October. He'll take over that position completely while Michael is still there, for them to work together, and then Michael can spend the end of this year working with Mariah, our record specialist, on archiving his work and getting that organized and ready for a new staff to take it over completely. And then Luke and I will be learning together next year, along with new staff over at the assessor's office after Marcy had retired earlier this year. Our fire marshal is also Randy Collins. He has been a great asset to the county and to our department specifically, and he's just going to be assisting me in looking at the fire marshal role long-term and what that would look like. Currently, it's a 0.6 FTE, and so we want to look at that in the future. We do have it budgeted as a full-time employee, and then in addition to that, he's also our fire investigation contract that we have with the chiefs. That expires at the end of this year, so it's been updated a couple of tweaks, and we're making it a 2-year contracted, so you guys could expect to see that before the end of this year for the 2024-2025 contract. Our Title VIII, we have SEPA rules, so State Environmental Policy Act. Lots of legislative changes has happened over the years, and we have failed to update our Title VIII. We typically just go by the WACs and RCWs, but we do have SEPA rules within our own title, and so that's just a housekeeping item that needs to be updated, and so I wanted to be able to do that in 2024. In addition to Title 15, that's our development code. It has a lot of the, procedures for notice of timing and different, how to process permits, and we need to get that updated and pay special attention to our enforcement section. So another housekeeping item that I'd like to tackle in 2024. And then DCD organization. So I still have, I'm very heavy on the leads that are all union positions. I have no managers, so I do want to, been looking at that for a long time, but just trying to get other things out of the way. But 2024, I definitely want to work with HR on looking at the management and less leads, one or more managers, and that could assist on just the personnel side of doing regular evaluations for staff, something that's been difficult for me to pull off on my own. And then finally, just ongoing SmartGov. I appreciate the board. We've appointed an internal staff person for working on our SmartGov. So we had Julia in IT that was helping us out, and that was fantastic. She went on maternity leave, and we had a staff internal that stepped up to do that work temporarily. But now that Julia is not coming back, we've identified someone that can, who seems to be really savvy with the program. We have, we keep a long ongoing list, and so she's going to be able to tackle that internally. And I just met with, Ian and I met with a SmartGov staff person yesterday who had indicated there might be a SmartGov tech staff that can assist us with our layout of all the permits and assist Julie in getting that developed. So that might be hopefully a good opportunity and good momentum to get that going, because I have a goal of by 2025 of having all of our permit types available online, but we are slowly rolling out additional permits to be available online. And that's all I have.
So we've been challenged with SmartGov in making any modifications to it through technical support through the entity themselves. So we've had to develop some of those expertises internally, and that's a challenge, right? So making sure that individuals' job descriptions include application maintenance. It's really a different skill set that you normally see within a job that's specific to IT. And since the IT resource is gone, then is it Stacy?
Julie.
Julie's kind of picked up that work, and so that's something that we continue to need to look at to see how do we move forward with that. And it's kind of scary in an organization where we don't have a big pool of resources, of human resources, to take those responsibilities and spread them out. So when you take all of that knowledge and you put it in one individual, and that individual then has a baby and decides to be a mom, you lose that. And so that's a risk that we have, especially within SmartGov. And SmartGov really touches a number of different departments and offices. So that is a concern that I have as we look forward. How do we ensure that we have some knowledge about how that application works, how we make modifications that can make our information more accessible? It's a big challenge.
how's it working with SmartGov? I mean, are they pretty responsive to issues or?
It kind of depends, and like I said, Ian and I had opportunity to meet with one of the, he's not on the tech side, but he's on the customer support liaison between us and the techs. And he happened to be in town for a conference in Yakima. He's from North Carolina, so he just happened to be able to pop in and chat. And I was indicating that I think now that we can get Julie, unleash her to go and work on SmartGov stuff, we can start seeing what we can do ourselves in-house on you know, kind of reformatting SmartGov on how it was set up. We're still working through that. Then identify the things that we can't do. So here are SmartGov issues that we need assistance with. And I don't know I could do that right now. So I think I need Julie to be, you know, spend the next several months. When Julia was out and Julie did start making modifications, we did find that we are internally capable of doing a lot of the fixes that we need. So I think I feel more positive about SmartGov than I have in the past, and I think that by the end of the year we could have a good indication of here's the help we really need from SmartGov, and from Josh from SmartGov, his indication with a person that might be able to assist us. That could be a good timing. So we'll see. I'll update in a couple of months to see where we're at.
I don't want to maybe pick up on something that Mark was saying. You know, we've kind of had this conversation at least a little bit at IT Steering Committee. You know, and I don't know that Julie's best use is troubleshooting our
Yeah, it's a temporary,
SmartGov, right.
temporary position for
you know,
her.
but I think, you know, it probably begs a bigger picture question, and that is SmartGov the right platform for us to be using? And I know that, you know, we've paid for SmartGov, we've put a lot of time and effort trying to make it work internally. I don't want us to go down this sunk cost path where we're like, well, we're too far into it that we can't, you know, just be honest about whether or not it's really meeting the needs or what we want it to do. And both internally and externally, and so, you know, like, we've duct taped this thing together for 5 years, and I'm not sure, I want us to have that conversation, like, is SmartGov the right platform for the future for us, or do we need to just say, hey, let's take a look at what other options are out there, so that we use Julie as a planner, and not as a planner / SmartGov troubleshooter, especially since it seems like SmartGov's customer service is pretty non-existent for us, or it's
I don't know that that's necessary. I think it depends on what the issue is. So I know that, you know, Kathy in our office with the chart of accounts changing over, and she's got a person that sounds real responsive and capable, and so we'll see how that goes, you know, on changing all of the financials within the SmartGov system to match with what the finance is doing. So, but I understood from, you know, environmental health and the food permits that was not something that was good. So it kind of depends. I actually, when I look back to where we were in 2021 and where we are now with SmartGov, I mean, we've made considerable improvement. So, you know, we're still using it internally, and you're not seeing stuff online because, you know, we know how to manipulate it on the internal side, but you have to be real careful about when you present it to the public. You know, they need to be able to logically submit a permit, and words matter, and setup matters. And so that's what's taking us longer, but I think that we're seeing internally that I feel like the system definitely continues each week, but I'm not feeling like it's something that we need to walk away from. And if we were to do that, it's like you're still taking data in a system and transferring out, and now you're building a whole new system, and it's like, I don't know, I'm feeling more positive about SmartGov than I have in the past.
But I think that you're correct. We're feeling more comfortable in SmartGov because we have internal people that have learned the application and how to manage it, right? So, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I've heard from you and Dave, who work in SmartGov the most, is when we've gone to SmartGov to ask for technical support to help develop these capabilities, that we haven't gotten that support. And that they haven't came to us and said, we'll help you get this information presented online. We'll help you stand up the online portal. So we're doing that all internally.
No, not completely. And I know Ian's done some of it with SmartGov on the food end of things. I know they're working on it now.
Okay?
Well, my understanding from the food piece is that Ian is going with a different software, that the food
Well,
piece
it's a
just
completely
did
different
not work
application.
through
Yep.
SmartGov, like that was a piece
Okay.
that they,
He's purchased a completely different application
Yeah,
for
but
the
not-
recording
but-
and presentation of it.
But that's for inspections. It's not for permits and that sort of thing.
Oh, okay.
It's just inspections. How do you do an inspection? How do you put it on a piece of paper, hand it to a customer? That's all it does.
And then present it publicly so the public can come on and see.
Yeah.
I guess
If I
that's where
jump
my
on just one second, because actually, I agree with what he was throwing out there in the beginning. I don't know if he's changed his mind, but the problem is we still got to look at it and see if it's actually working and if there's another better possibility. And if we don't do that, we're not doing any service to anybody. We've gone through a whole process, and I don't want to lose all that. I agree, but at the same time, are we going to save money, time, and the ability to service our people by doing something different? We won't know unless we look. And I'd like for us to at least take a look. There is a possibility of splitting the baby and still using for this part and not that part, at least in the beginning, for example, in health or whatever. But I would like to at least consider, because we know that although you are overcoming the mountain, it is a mountain, and it's been a mountain of failure after failure after failure, so you have to learn how to adjust to it, learn how to get there. There might be a different way, and I'd be interested in at least looking at that. I don't know if I
Yeah,
captured
no,
what you were saying.
I completely agree with that. And I think like, we don't get bonus points because we've like figured it out. You know, like we've gone all this extra effort to figure it out. Like what we want is we want to make sure that we have the right product to serve your staff needs, but also that we have the right product to serve the county's residents' needs, people who are doing projects here. You know, and I worry about like us saying, well, we can make it work, because I just think that's the wrong mindset, like, not just for this, but like organizationally, as a whole. Like if we're just saying, well, we can figure out how to make this work, we'll just make do, when we could be looking at other alternatives. And so I don't want to lose opportunities to evaluate other platforms that might be more successful for us. There's no, like, we made the best decision we could based on the information we had back in 2017, 2018. It's not like anybody did anything wrong. I think there were issues with how it was rolled out and how the data transfer happened, and I think there's a lot of reasons for that, and it is what it is, but that doesn't mean we need to like just double down on this because this is what we have.
so it might be me using wrong language, because I don't feel like we're just making this work. I feel like we have gotten to a point where it is working, and that there is still work to do, but that it's not, I don't see that it's worth throwing out. And maybe it's something I could spend some time with TJ on, you know, really going through the process of it to see, like, because I'm not an IT person, but, you know, just to kind of truth and sleuth on my perception, because we have spent a lot of work on it, and so, but I'm not attached to anything either, so I don't want, it's not like I've done all this work to try to fix it and now I'm attached to it. I don't want to be that way either. That's why I think I would appreciate TJ's assistance, maybe working with me and Julie to see, like, you know, make sure I get some biases out of there. But I feel like it's a program that can work for us successfully. There are, you know, Kitsap County uses it, Olympia, Bainbridge. Not that they don't have their frustrations, but I think you could say that probably about any software program that you work with. When I was at the Port of Tacoma, we had all kinds of different software, and everybody complained at different things. But so, you know, I just, I think if TJ's open to that, you know, we can work on that and maybe come back to the board to see, because I really don't want to just throw it out because we've done all this work and it sounds like, it's Band-Aiding it. So maybe it's my failure of language on how I'm saying the process of improvement there. Just want to have that opportunity.
And I know for myself, I'm not saying that it has to be to throw out, but I think that we need to look at it. I think, I have a black belt in Six Sigma and the lean process. One of the things that you have to do is look for the bottlenecks. This is a bottleneck. There's just no way around it. It has been. Now, maybe you're overcoming it, but over the years, the last few years, and I want to say, as for when we took it on, we bought it before it changed over to a whole new company called Dude Solutions. So when we actually purchased it, you don't know that because you weren't here, we purchased a whole other concept and idea, and then it was taken over by another company, and then everything had to change to work with their infrastructure, if you remember. They were changing their...
4 times.
Yeah, so that's going to be some of the problems. I'm just saying for myself, I'd like to see if there's other options, because sometimes the best way to go around it is to redirect. And, it's still a bottleneck. We're still going to run into it unless we look at some options to get around that. And I'd like to still continue to at least look at it. And if there isn't, then this is the one we stay with.
I think my frustration, when I got into office in 2019, went to a meeting down at, well, it used to be ProBuild. What is it now? Anyway, went down there and staff gave a presentation saying, oh, it's going to be awesome and it's just right around the corner. Well, corner is a long corner, or really a wide corner. So I think for the county and for all of our constituents and the builders that are not in our county, to be able to have something they could just go in, it seems like that would speed up the process too. And I think that's what we were looking at when we talk about SmartGov, is speeding up that process, because that's one of the steps in that process. So I think trying to get something to work is going to be better than, if SmartGov's the right way to go, then let's make it work. But I'm not a patient person. Yeah.
Can I add too? I think it's important whether you stay with SmartGov or if we did find a different platform, to make sure we have adequate IT staff support. Because I think what we've not been good about is we buy software, we have 4 IT staff for the whole county. They get it up and running and they're like, here you go, figure it out. And that's where Kel's kind of like, okay, we're trying to figure it out, which is using a planner to help figure it out. And that's what TJ and I have talked about is, we would like to see where there could be adequate IT staff to support the software in whatever departments. So that way you're not struggling with what it can do and not do and all that, and to maximize the use of all of our software.
Well, the thing I remember when Dave brought it to us, they were coming in with all kinds of help, and that was one of the things that was solution, because we were dealing with so many of these other things with Munis and everything else. That's what I know sold me, was they had this huge crew going to come in, set it up for us, help us. There was this whole thing that was going to be happening that didn't even happen, but it wasn't any of our staff's fault. The whole world changed. It just, that whole organization, the structure. And the thing that was a shocker to me was just after we purchased it, they not only said that it sold and everything, but that they had to conform it to Do Solution software and to their way of making things work. It's like, wow, you buy a company and you just go ahead and gut it and put your stuff in the middle of it. So we ended up accidentally buying somebody else's stuff that we never got pitched on.
So please include Dave and Ian in that discussion with TJ, since they have environmental health permit stuff and food permits.
And what about Public Works? Did you guys use
Public
it
Works
too, right?
needs to access and utilize it for sure.
Yeah.
Which I think that we've actually set up some training on that for them to get in and get more familiar with SmartGov and the process and how to monitor permits that are out there that require Public Works support or approval.
Use. Get in and use it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that all you have, Tim? thanks. I'm just trying to keep on schedule, so.
Well, I have
Oh,
something I
sorry,
want to
go
talk,
ahead.
yeah. Did you have more that you wanted to? 'Cause you had a
You go
list.
ahead. I have a list, but you can go ahead.
Well, I have a big list.
Go for it, go for it.
Okay.
Might be some overlap.
All right, so one of the things that I'd still like to see us do is when you're doing your reports on the building permits, I'd like to see it separated out specifically with commercial specifically, but starting from the beginning of when they started the process. Currently, right now, I don't like turning off the clock. I believe we leave the clock on because apples and apples, oranges and oranges compared to the past. You can't change the recipe now and say we've improved because we've turned off the clock in the middle. So personally, you can have both. Give me both if you want, but I'd like to still see the numbers compared to the numbers we did before. I'd also like to see us basically create measurable, if you separate them out, create measurable changes to see if we can keep shortening them as we're going, and keep providing us those measurable changes that you may be able to implement, for example, on the pole building, and how to get that thing out much quicker than another one that's much more labor and mental capacity intensive, and many more people have to go out for inspections. The short-term rental that we brought up, that was Commissioner Schutte that brought that forward, and I definitely agreed. I think Commissioner Trask agreed that we've got a problem. I don't know why we have to do the long game on this when we could be doing the short game first and then a long game afterwards. I'd love to see copy and paste on some of the stuff so we can at least get something to discuss as commission put into place so we can begin the process. We can always make it better and go through a whole process with the planning commission and everything like that. But at least get us something in the short term so we can start moving with that. Appointments. I think it's a failure. I think it has been a failure. We had to do it during COVID, and I think it's worse. This is, in my opinion, when I'm going through my process in my head, the Six Sigma process, this is a huge bottleneck, and it keeps happening. And even some of the comments I've heard from staff say that they believe that it is a huge bottleneck that is stopping people from getting started. You and I, and I think Mark, remember we had a situation where we had one person that was 8 weeks out, 6 to 8 weeks out before they could even get an appointment to be able to look at their stuff. Now, when you're putting a clock together, that part of that clock, if you can't get in to get an appointment to get the process started, you're still held up that much time. So I'd like to do away with that as best as we possibly can. Allow for both. Allow for them to come in, get it done. It could be done by having somebody on staff that's walking the floor that day. They walk it and keep it all the way through themselves. I'd also like to see intake, and I brought this up in the past when I think you were here, when you sent me over to do the desk audit commissioner stuff. One of the things that I saw at the time is still an answer. We have educated individuals who are doing the intake. There's so much of it that they could actually finish it all themselves to the point to where you only have a few things left to go. I believe that we have to focus on getting that done because that'll lessen that bottleneck. By having them carry it around to each piece to get it done as much as possible, you only have this part left and you don't have the lag time for picking it up and getting it going again. And I think we need to focus on that, not just keep thinking about it, but focus on it. This way, again, like I said, we can close up as much as possible. I think I'll leave it at that for the moment, but that's still quite a bit to take on. Oh, one last thing, use video conferencing more than we do. You already started to do it, and I appreciate it, but there's so many times that they're going to go measure the depth of the post hole. For a pole building, for example, it must be so many inches. They don't have to drive out there. They can literally, these days, we can pick up the phone, you can have the client sit there and do it, put a measuring stick on it, and you're done. You save all that time. And that can be done, again, with people from intake. It can be done with the person, if you give it to them, they walk that whole process, the whole permit all the way through to the end. There's different ways that we can do it to shorten up our process and get these permits done and out a lot quicker. That's what I had, sorry. Did we overlap?
A little bit, yeah. Especially the other. Okay. I think the other thing, and this is an opportunity, I think, for collaboration between your department and public health, but continuing to work on affordable and workforce housing and figuring out how we can utilize the multifamily tax exemption that we still have in code. I think that sunsets relatively soon.
It expired in 2019,
We did
actually.
it,
Yeah.
it's still in our code.
But I think it says that
Oh,
it expired in
I thought it said
2019.
26.
Really?
Yeah, I was just looking at it.
I don't recall ever updating that, but did we?
Well, either way,
It's,
okay,
I remember it
so let me-
since, and I don't remember if they ever
Yeah.
created something. They were talking about the legislature, but I
Yeah,
didn't
the
follow whether or not they
legislature
ever extended
extended
it.
it.
They did?
But we did not. But I'm wondering if,
Then we should.
Well, then
Yeah.
because we did have one applicant that actually paid the fees, went through it, and then it still didn't pencil out for them,
Yeah.
so they decided not to.
Well, that
use
whole
it.
thing on top of the hill, they turned us down because they made more money by not doing it, in Belfair. But maybe there's other things we can do to sweep it
So
up.
let's take a look at that a little
Okay.
bit, because I think our code just refers to the RCW.
Okay.
I don't think we have a date certain in our code.
Okay.
Somebody asked me about it too. I thought it had expired, so I gave wrong information. Well, technically.
I know that this is gonna be a priority for like, Association of Washington Cities, it's on their list of priorities. And so it's a short session, so I don't know whether the legislature's gonna address it again, but I'm sure they will, because it's not just a Washington State or a Mason County, it's nationwide.
Well, it's interesting, we appointed Commissioner Schutte to a committee to do this, to do the low income and other aspects for helping those with disabilities and stuff like that. We just appointed him to it a year ago, so he actually is working with organizations that could take advantage of this as they're going for legislature dollars and stuff. So if it's a tool that he thinks we need to make sure we have it back on our agenda so they can use it if it's legal. It's up to them. If they don't use it, we're not out nothing by putting it back on.
Yeah, I think it's just having more options in our code to provide that opportunity, so. But we can talk a little bit more about it and see if we read the information the same way. Go ahead.
Anything else? Commissioner?
Good.
Good?
All right, thanks, Cal. Dave, you want to jump into public health?
Okay, so, sure. Kind of a wrap up of 2023, some things that are still kind of cooking here. WIC, we're bringing WIC into the county. That is going full tilt. Melissa's office is full of baby scales and all kinds of equipment, so that's getting rolling very shortly. We just put out the job descriptions for our position. We're hiring for WIC, so that's moving forward.
And where is it going to be located?
It's going to be located out at the YMCA. So it's a three-way partnership between us, the YMCA, and Mason Health. So YMCA is providing the location, Mason Health is providing the clinic rooms, clinic equipment, and then we are providing the people to do the work. And then actually DOH is providing us with the IT support and that piece as well. So
How
this
how many hours will that be open?
we're going to be open 2 days a week to start, looking at going to 3 days a week, with one of those days probably being evening hours. So,
And so will the person, so you said that you're out hiring or looking for somebody. Is that person going to be full-time or part-time?
oh yeah. Yeah, it'll take full time.
But they won't be
They'll be
office
seeing,
full-time?
they'll be seeing clients 2 to 3 days a week, but there's a lot of office things go on behind that as well, so.
I'm just, time efficiency.
Yeah. Well, we looked at, having 2 people, and we decided that until the caseload builds up, there's no point in having a second person. And we don't know where
Especially-
caseload's going to be. It could be 500 right off the bat, or it could build to over 500, so.
I'm just really happy that it's coming back.
Yes, yeah. And I think, I think our Hispanic and Guatemalan population is going to be, it's going to be a great asset. And that's one reason why we put it at the YMCA, is it's a trusted, neutral place for people to go. So,
I think that service was provided by Community Action Council,
yeah,
and then they decided it wasn't.
yeah.
So
It just,
I appreciate you bringing it back.
yeah. Yeah. So that's underway. Evergreen Estates is underway. That's a three-way between Loretta and I are working on, actually a four-way, really good, because we've got the city, us, Evergreen Estates, and Public Works working on that project. And we're making headway there. It's a slow process because you get the RFPs, you do that piece, and then SRP. The goal is to have Evergreen Estates hooked up to water and sewer. And it continues to evolve because the properties around there continue to evolve, and what's being developed out there will actually impact in a positive way what we're trying to do with Evergreen Estates. So getting them hooked to sewer solves a couple problems. One, it's going to solve the high nitrate in the water because our septic systems have been failing for years, and we've been kind of patching things together until we get a solution. And it'll solve pulling that water out and having it consumed. We don't want that anymore, so we'll fix that as well.
There's got to be grants out there that help with this, help cover the expenses, right?
Right, and that's where we're going. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. And I know that there are grants too through the Public Works Board and through the, I think is it ecology? Yeah. Yeah.
So that project is actually cruising along. So, and it was actually in part of our RIA 14 plan. We worked on that over the past 5 years. So that'll be one that we can take the RIA 14 plan and check off as it gets done. So, okay. Looking for capital projects, and I'll come back to that in a minute here. The 2015 drought plan was a plan that was produced between 2012 and 2015, and it's for emergency response. It was built, was never adopted, and now it's out of date. So we've got some time and money set aside to finish that project this year. Going forward, because I really think it's something that Cal will need to have, because it inventories all the Group A water systems, which could go into the capital facilities plan for the comp plan. So we'll get that prep work done, and that'll make that piece that much easier to do. And of course, inventory water systems incorporated in the capital facilities plan. We're doing a study right now on RIA 14 with Mott McDonald, and they're inventorying every water system, every well. And that is a whisker from being done. So, and that goes to help fulfill the requirements of the MOA we have with the Squaxin Tribe. So we did a review last week. There's a few small presentation things done. We'll get that fixed. I have some emails with Mott McDonald from this morning I need to read. But once that's done, I think we'll get the MOU signed off, and that'll take that off of our plate. That's something we've been working on again since 2018, I think. Yeah, 2018. That's when we worked on that. So that'll get completed here very shortly. And then it not only is it just completing the MOA, it does give us a planning tool for use with the planning and for public health as far as the wells and where the water systems are and how many connections are still available and what's out there for water adequacy. So it'll actually be a usable tool by the time we get it all done. Ian's working on the drinking water section. One of the things we have in our county code is never set drinking water aside in its own section. So Ian's working on that process to have drinking water on its own, not necessarily as a piece of other pieces. So put that into its own section. Okay. And got a lot of things accomplished this year. We really hit a lot of things that were in our strategic plan. We really have touched everything that's in their strategic plan. Are all complete? Not all complete, but they're everything got touched this year, so that's good. For the first time, we have an epidemiologist working with us on staff that's helping out all the different pieces of public health. So whoever needs data or needs data analyzed, we've got somebody there that's doing that work, and that's kind of first that we've never had that here before. We've always had to rely on DOH or some other agency to give us our data, and so much better when we have our own data processed by our own people and explain it ourselves. So that's a good thing. I have a bullet in here, hire permanent health specialists to manage contracts under housing, homelessness, and behavioral health. That continues to change even as late as last week. The coordinated entry piece, a lot of that is influenced by Cascade Pacific Action Alliance, or now it's just Choice. So for those who didn't know, Choice was the backbone for Cascade Pacific Action Alliance, which was the accountable community health for our 7 counties. And 2 separate boards, that's all collapsed now back to one board. So it'll be one organization, will be known as Choice. So we'll see those contracts changing as we go forward. And a lot of that in the Medicaid Transformation Project 2.0 is around housing, homelessness, and coordinated entry. So the legislature's kind of put the onus on Choice to coordinate that with the counties. So we're still amongst all of us working through that process and see how that actually looks. So if we do a coordinated entry right now, it's through Crossroads. Do we need to beef up Crossroads? Do we need to do something Community Action Council-wise? I mean, there are a number of directions we can go with it. And as a group with Choice and with other providers, we're looking to kind of go through that process and figure out what's the best fit, what's the best solution. And it's probably not going to look the same in each county. So Mason County probably will look a little bit different than other counties, depending on what NGOs are already in place within the community and which ones are, standing up and stepping down. Communications continues to be we actually have some money now with FPHS to really beef up communications, and that is in progress. Our epidemiologist is working on KPIs. So how do we measure what we do? So that is underway. He's gone through environmental health and is about to start the community health KPIs. And that's key performance indicators. And how do we measure what we do? How do we make sure that we're making progress? And if we're putting money into a system and we're not seeing a change in the needle on the KPIs, why is it? And do we need to go back and change what we're doing? Or do we need to just change direction altogether and find a different way of doing that to make a needle move? So it'll give us an idea of how efficiently we're spending money. Do we get the result from the money that we are spending? So it's something we wanted to do for years, and now that we have somebody that we can pin that on, that's what we're doing. So, and he's charging it headlong into that. So we're working on that. Like I said, environmental health, we've got them listed. We haven't implemented them yet. Next thing is to implement them, or a list for community health. A lot more complicated with community health. It's really tough. On the environmental health side, we can say, we did this many permits in this amount of time, this much lag. Community health, how do you measure and how do you define changes in obesity in the community, changes in diabetes? So it's a much larger thing, larger scale. So we're working, how do we measure those things? And that's the biggest part of the conversation now, going forward with community health. And all the health departments are doing similar work, so we've got some information exchange going on with other departments, seeing how they're doing it, how we're doing it, what do we measure, how do we measure. So that's going forward. And we do have the money aside with the Foundation of Public Health Services money to do that specific work. Let's see. Impact reports, that'll be rolled into that as well. We're looking at establishing teams within public health. In the latest Foundation of Public Health Services money, there's funding set aside specifically to bolster environmental health leadership. Basically, it pays for another person in environmental health to be either a assistant manager or to be a completely policy person. And what we're looking at doing is using that as an assistant manager to work with environmental health and kind of divide environmental health into teams, divide community health into teams, put an assistant manager with each to manage those things, to reduce the amount of direct reports each manager has. So, and that gives a assistant manager possibly the chance to focus on particular things. So for environmental health, we're thinking of an assistant manager who will work a lot with the code enforcement and bring the code enforcement pieces together with solid waste, liquid waste, and planning and building issues as well. So, and then starting the conversation of working with the city on doing some of those things at the same time too. So solid waste is a problem across the county. Hell, everywhere you look, and it's a big problem, and it needs the resources put to it. So Ian is working, as we said earlier, on the permitting types for EH permits. We've gotten working on with the sewage contractor licenses, which is this is kind of a different program. Group E water system regulations. So years ago, DOH did the Group E water system management themselves. In about 2015, they essentially washed their hands of Group Bs and said, counties, you do it, but then didn't give us any resources to do it. So finally, we have some money and some resources. So we're going to work on our Group E water regs, and it'll kind of solve two things. One, we need to get a handle on it, and two, it'll help us going forward with the RIA work, knowing what connections are available and making sure those water systems are safe and we have an idea of how much water they're using. Let's see. New food inspection software, we talked about that a little bit. In fact, I just signed off on the contract on that last week. It's basically just to do an inspection. How do you do inspection? And then as you walk out to your truck, hand the business owner their inspection report at the time instead of bringing it back, piling it at the office, sending it back, just eliminate those steps. So they'll get it on at that time, and then we can actually publish the food inspection reports online. So, and that will go out through our county website. We just add another line to the county website, and there it is. It'll look a lot like what Thurston is doing with their food inspections.
So are those available online? I'm confused. How do you give them a copy of what's been inspected?
So at the
You
time,
just email it to them?
they can email it to them on site. So before you leave, you can email it to them, or we can print the report.
With printers in our vehicles?
Put printers in the vehicles, yeah. So it's well,
It's less than 100.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 I've had printers in trucks for years and years. So
It's good enough for the cops.
That was one of those things
Yeah.
that came to us
Here's your ticket,
years
yeah.
ago.
yeah,
We were excited because it seemed like a no-brainer. We even had a time where you didn't have phones. Remember, you didn't have the ability to get online and stuff like that with a lot of your stuff.
right. So what we're using is
Game tablets, remember?
yeah, and the what do you call it, the little ones, the PDAs.
Yeah.
You know, we used to do the inspections with a PDA, plug it into the truck, and it would print out the inspection report. So this is just an upgrade of what has been going on for years, really.
I mean, I know that there are mobile printers. I'm just thinking everybody's trying to go paperless. And so in order to get there,
Not me.
Well, but still, you need to have something that you
Sorry,
post
Steph.
in your facility. You just have to post it. So
right. So the state says we're going to go paperless, but you have to have this on your wall.
yeah.
I never thought of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yes. Tell me something. RS, we've already talked in the past about registered sanitarian and registered environmental health specialist. We've talked about that under the career incentive program. I don't think it is under the career incentive program right now, but that's something we need to come back to, circle back to, and see how that works with the HR. So increased number of solid waste facilities inspected, and that's, again, a contract through DOH. So what a lot of people don't understand is we have many sources of funding. Part of our funding is called the consolidated contract, or the CONCON, and that's just us doing work for DOH under contract. And a lot of our solid waste work is done under contract with DOH. We now have some FPHS dollars that are also set aside to do solid waste work, so it'll just enhance our ability to do that work. So essentially right now we'll have one person who's being paid out of the consolidated contract, one person who's being paid out at PHS, same work. So it's still going to be site inspections, solid waste facilities. They work with Loretta and solid waste facilities out there. it just expands our capability this year. And that person's already on staff and already working. So, talked about the assistant managers. Clean Water District Advisory Committee bylaws are being drafted, and that's Ian is getting that squared away. And one big thing we did this year was a software called Permidium, and Permidium is our vital records request software. And what it has done is allowed anybody to do like we were talking about, Commissioner, they can request their birth certificate, death certificate from home, and the cost of the county is exactly $0 because the company that we contract with puts the fee on their piece, not on our piece. So we still get the same amount of money for the certificates that we did in the past, and people can then either stop in the morning, and pick them up. They can do them at night, like I said, and it shows up in the morning. Our techs go in, print those off right away, and the funeral homes are definitely using that. They're there at the office door first thing every morning, 8 o'clock. They're there to pick up certificates that are processed. So that has worked really well. That has been an easy process for us, and then at the end of the month, they send us a check. So it's worked really well.
Do we also mail?
We can mail too, yeah. And there's a fee for that.
Okay.
So I think it's an extra $3, and then we can mail them their certificate.
Okay.
I think it's $3 for the first one, and I think there's something for each one after that. So it's been very popular with folks because when they come in, they can do it online or they can come into the office and do it. And we hand them an iPad. They can sit down and do it in whatever language they want. So it's we have, I think, 116 languages in the software. So they can sit down, do it. It goes to the computer, gets printed. It's an easy process. So it has taken a lot of the wait time out of the lobby. So, so people aren't standing at the counter. They can just sit down and do their thing. They just go up to the counter and pick it up. So that's really what I've got going.
No? Any questions for Dave?
Yeah, I got a couple. Dave, not much discussion in your report about opioid settlement funds and what the thinking might be for that heading into 2024 and beyond.
Right. So that's where really you and I and Mark Ziegler from the city, and I think Christina, we need to sit down. We have money in the account now. We have actually 2 years worth of money that's been unspent. This past year, Tim Whitehead went through the process of getting all the legal paperwork and the reporting pieces in place. So that is done. We did not join the whole 5 county or 7 county, whatever it was, process. We are on our own with us and Shelton. We're doing our own subcommittee of that larger committee. So now it's time to get together and decide how we're going to spend the money. What are the gaps and how do we apply that money to those gaps? So that process is, I think I sent an email, actually Christina and I sat down and talked about it last week about what are the gaps that she sees, because she's out there working in the community. And then we'll come to you and Mark, because Mark sees things, I'm sure, Mark Ziegler sees things from the city viewpoint, what's going on downtown. And then we need to make sure that we include North Mason in that as well, because they have their own unique set of issues in North Mason. So it's definitely on the radar for us to work on this year.
And the other thing that I had is I just maybe wanted to go back to the coordinated entry conversation a little bit. I know that this is something that's been a challenge amongst the providers for quite a while. And just being candid about it, it feels like there's still this sort of territorial sort of, attitude towards how coordinated entry should work and who's doing what and everything. And so I don't know if in your experience or in your conversations with your counterparts across the state or in conversation with Todd and Melissa and Haley, is there any precedent for a county public health department or housing division running coordinated entry? This is, and I'll say why I bring that up. So on the Housing Behavioral Health Advisory Board, this is something that comes up routinely. And this was something that was floated a few years ago, and then it seemed like things sort of like, I mean, COVID kind of took over, and so the focus was a little bit different. But it seems like we're starting to maybe come back into some of those old patterns. And so I didn't know if there was a precedent for that, or if that's an
Yeah,
option,
there-
or
It's a really good question. There are a number of models around the state, a number that I've worked with before. So, for example, in Padre County, the county owns the mental health work, and a lot of their coordinated entry goes through the mental health department at the county. In Stevens County, it was through Rural Resources, which is a community action council, but it covered 5 counties. And it was a one-stop shop. It had WorkSource, it had stuff for kids, winterization, housing, all those things were in one building, one location people could stop in. So there's that model. And then other counties some have more robust human service departments than we do that have a coordinated entry at the county level. That's not been our model so far. It's something I think we could certainly talk about, because you're right, it does seem disjointed, and I think out in the community there's confusion about who do I go see about what. And it would be handy to have one location where somebody can go and be directed where they need to go next. So whether that's with one of our current providers, or do we build something new, it's a conversation we need to have. Because right now we're doing contracts out to people to do pieces of that work, but there's nothing really that ties it all together.
yeah, and I don't know if there's anything in the, the contract language with Commerce that stipulates that this is money that has to be granted out, or if there are other options. And I think if we're going to continue to kind of have the same issues bubble up every couple of years, then I think we just need to get a better handle on that. And if it's not something that we want to do or are able to do, then we need to probably, as a commission, have a better expectation setting conversation with the people that we contract out for to do this work. Because it's just, I mean, it's difficult work, but it's just really important that we get it right, and that there is actually, we actually focus on the coordinated part of the coordinated entry, and that there's some alignment between providers and the community.
Right. Okay.
Do you want to talk about HEN?
Oh boy, do I want to talk about him. I think we've got Mark and I were talking about that earlier this morning. We've got a meeting with some other people to talk about the future of him. And so that, man, things are getting lively with that group. So Commerce is now in the picture. But it's definitely something that we need to talk about.
Right.
And we need to get, so I'd like to get you, Mark, Melissa, Todd, and Craig, thank you. Yeah, Craig, together from Coastal. Now let's talk.
I think our biggest concern for Mason County is how do we ensure that the residents within Mason County continue to receive those services, and we have some concerns about the current provider and whether they're going to be able to continue those. So we're looking for alternatives to provide specific HEN program administration. So I've reached out to Coastal Connections, and isn't that what they're called, Coastal?
Yeah.
It's like Coastal CAC.
Yeah.
So they do Grace Harbor and Pacific now.
Okay, did anybody else catch the fun in that HEN program?
CAC.
Nobody? Okay, sorry.
Wasn't intended.
Not until now.
Yes. So yeah, so we're going to look at some options and make sure that if there is a program that we can go over to, that program would be as seamless as possible for our constituents, because they rely on that support on a monthly basis. And so very important to ensure that there's not a lack in resources that go to them.
I think reaching out maybe to Thurston County and having a conversation with them on how they did it and what hurdles and barriers that they had to jump when they're making their move.
And they went to Catholic Community Services with
Right.
Thurston County. for
Right.
that, so.
And Madam Chair, this part is your barbecue, but I want you to know that I'm supportive of moving every dollar out of there that we can. It's become a liability. It is an issue that we have to worry about, not just for our internal feelings, but when they're acting in a certain manner, we have to protect our community, our dollars, and everything else. So anything we can move would be a wise opportunity for us.
Yeah. My concerns are the people that are receiving the services, and then making sure that those services are being paid for in a timely manner also. So those are just there's some issues going on there that we need to definitely address and make sure that
We
we're.
won't have to if we move it on.
Yeah.
So along those lines, one of the things we've been brainstorming in management is if we grow, where do we go? Because if you've been in my
Yeah.
building, you've seen we converted closets into offices. I mean, we are packed, and Kel's the same way, she's got people just packed everywhere. So if we grow, where do we go? And I did get authorization from Musalfo, who really coordinates our funding through FPHS. We can't build a capital project with the FPHS funding, but we can pay rent. So if we can pay rent, an idea would be is we take our Human Services Division of Public Health and give them a location where they are together, and maybe even a street front location. And, you know, the assistant manager would maybe handle that piece of public health. And then inside the building, that would free up space for us to do some other things downstairs. But that would also give us a human services location. So that's just an idea that we're kicking around right now. It'll take some work. We'll look at what rents are, where we can go, what's available out there. So for around like 6 to 7 people.
Mark, when you get an opportunity later, bring that one up to me again later. I see an opportunity there that we should talk about that could benefit the whole county.
Okay.
Okay. So,
Yeah, just to Commissioner Trask, I appreciate your work on the CAC board. I think, you know, you touched on it, Mark touched on it. At the end of the day, this is really about providing services to the clients and the people who need it most. And so I think providers ought to know that that's going to be our expectation, that comes first. And so we're, you know, Commissioner Netherlands said, I mean, we're behind you on this, and we'll wait to hear more on some other opportunities. But all the providers should know that none of this is guaranteed if you're not meeting those expectations.
Absolutely.
Right, and I appreciate the contracts that you have with all of our providers too, because there are clauses in there that protects the county and the clients. And so that's, especially at this time, that's pretty important, knowing that we've got that security and that the clients have that security.
So for me, are you done?
You're good, yep.
The coordinated entry piece that he was talking about, it's funny, you have a position that you're talking about, you not only like it, you like it a lot because you asked for it twice.
No,
It's the exact same verbiage and everything.
I
So
know.
with that being said, I've
Cut and
always
paste.
I've always been on record thinking that we have a position that covers some of that stuff, but we don't use it for that position. We use it for some other stuff, and it becomes paper shuffling, where I think that need to be more active in actually creating the issues, creating the connections, helping to create the entities to service these things that we need. And I actually see it as a great opportunity for what he just brought up, to utilize some of what you have in that list to make a grander position that can handle all that. I'd like to at least see what you come up with and see what you're looking at it and see if we can do it in-house. If those dollars are there, especially, it makes sense to at least consider it. Can we handle it all if we have a person that's dedicated to do the things that we need instead of an organization that's doing 100 different things?
yeah, and it's, funding gets a little interesting with FPHS when you come to human services, because there's brackets to kind of hold it off from human services. So I'll have to work on that.
And the other thing that I have is, actually it becomes for both of you, because no matter what, it's a failure not of you guys, it's a failure that we have in this county, and we've had since I've gotten here. We've never been able to overcome it or to fix it. I know at one point I brought up having code enforcement as part of the law enforcement, and I still think that having that kind of teeth. somehow we need to work together to put teeth behind your code enforcement and then fund it and make it happen. In Kitsap County, they have a connection where they bring the sheriff's department, mental health, code enforcement all out to deal with certain things that are happening in the community. Between one of them, several of them, they get to do it. We can't really do that here because ours doesn't have any teeth or any way to go through it. I'm going to ask you if the commission agrees to find those teeth. Find a way to do it and then ask us to fund it. I don't expect you just to pull it out of anything you already have. This is too important. If we can finally get this thing established and get it funded, once you change it at the bottom, you change it at the top. It'll give us tools to handle a lot of the different drug issues, crime issues and stuff, when we can handle it just right there at the property when there's 27 people living in one piece of property and they're dismantling vehicles in the middle of the night. That wrecking yard you and I were talking about, I got an angry message and ended up with a long conversation as they were bringing vehicles in the middle of the night now on tow trucks. And then they're tearing them all up and they're working through the night to cut them up using plasma cutters and stuff. So, but we have no, we can tell you this and you can even try and go up, but you have no teeth. I'm asking you to help me find the teeth and then ask me to empower you to get it done. That's just my, if the other commissioners agree, it can become a priority.
And I think, along those lines, we have an opportunity now with the mental health co-responder program in the sheriff's office to actually have that component of it. If you're living in these conditions and chances are there is a overlapping behavioral health or substance use issue that's driving some of the behavior and all that kind of stuff at some of these compounds. So, I think it's interesting. We have that component in place now. We know we have staffing challenges on the patrol side in the sheriff's office that we have to think about. And then, obviously, as Commissioner Netherland was talking about your staffs and what they would need to be successful in that. But we have, I think, an opportunity now with the mental health component to really think about this and be thoughtful about what we put together. Because it's a problem that's not going away. And and I think when we talk to our constituents about it, why can't you do more? Why aren't you doing more? Is this not, you don't care about this because this is ongoing. And I think part of the challenge is, when you're seeing these things day in and day out, you don't know what's actually happening on the enforcement side and how hard and long that process usually is, and dealing with people who are, you're trying to get some, cooperation voluntarily before you go through the, penalty phase and all that kind of stuff. So, having some additional tools in the toolbox, if you will, challenge us with that. Let us figure out how we put some money behind it, because I think we're starting to see some of those components be available to us.
And there's so much more going on in those camps than,
Yeah.
I hear stories, they're not really stories, but about the women and what happens to them. So there's so much that, man, I would love to just go in there and just clean house, but we can't do that, so.
And even though we have some positions that need to be filled in law enforcement right now, it's still a cost savings when they're getting 27 calls for that one location in a month. There's just no way around it. If we fix that, we fix a lot up on the top, so.
I'll just say too, I did a ride along it last month, and I was out for a few hours with one of our deputies, and in that 5 or 6 hour period, there were probably 7 or 8 mental health related calls that the co-responders were able to assist on or just take outright on their own that saved, them from having to go along. And so, we just need to be thoughtful about finding some of these opportunities to create capacity in order to go after some of these long-standing issues. So we're getting there, but this is a huge issue.
I've never been a fan of creating laws, but I believe that there is a reason for it, that we're derelict in our duties if we don't. If that's what it takes for us, is you to bring us things that we need to pass into law at the local level to make these things happen, I think we're doing everybody a disservice if we don't.
All right, thanks, Dave. Public health, so jump right into our Public Works Division and start out with utilities first. So Loretta and Richard, you ready?
We are ready. I'm going to start just with a quickie, acknowledging Richard and wearing 3 hats this year. So we've had, as you know, commissioners, on average, probably a 25% vacancy within the department overall. And as a result, both Richard and Mike and everyone else in the department have been working long hours, extra hours, wearing different hats, and really stepping up, and I cannot express my appreciation enough. So I am especially proud about the accomplishment list despite that, and I think maybe in fact of that everyone has been persistent, resourceful, put in extra hours, and at the same time maintained a super high bar for the department. And that's it. Thank you.
I guess the rest
Standing
of
ovation.
right?
So now, put
That's
that hat
right.
on and start talking.
Okay, get my hat on. All right, solid waste, let's start there. Well, new high, we're expecting about 52,000 tons of trash come through there this year. We're averaging right now 4,400 tons a month, which is incredible. I mean, I haven't color coded, and now they've changed over the years. Less than 3,000 was green, the 3,000 range, yellow, then it went to red. Red hit 4,500. We used to only have one of those a year for the last 3 years. We've had 5 in a row. So it's crazy. It just went up, and it seems like we hit a capacity, because that's how much garbage this county can put out. They've been holding tight for a while.
I don't know whether that's something to brag about or.
It's crazy. I mean, it's
Scream
really,
about.
to me, it's weird. It's a
Yeah.
weird way to look at the world, like
Yeah,
socially.
right, I think so too. Do we blame Amazon?
Our cardboard has gone
Actually,
excellent.
yeah.
We have a lot
My house
more
you can.
cardboard, which has been helpful in the recycling, because we do get kickbacks from.
True.
How much of that do you think comes from out-of-county people, that it's cheaper for them to truck their garbage into Mason County and dispose of it than?
You know, I think maybe on the Thurston side of it, because Grace Harbor's still relatively inexpensive, and we just don't have the facilities to take care of kids that, like, you know, I'm sure we get bleed over.
Yeah.
And we will get more bleed
Yeah,
over
absolutely.
the more
But
facilities.
has there been an increase since they changed their base rate? They went from, it was like, I think it was $21 is your minimum, is up to like 48 now. Just overnight, they changed their minimum. So you come in with a car that has 1 trash can in it, now it's $48 a minimum. So
I
I'm
can
wondering how
find
much
that
they
out, really.
shifted to us at that point, because we didn't have that.
I don't have those numbers, but I can easily get those through Paradigm. We can easily see customer counts and tonnage. And actually, one of our biggest accomplishments was actually add more days. You know, we're open 7 days a week now at Eels Hill, and 5 days a week. I think maybe 6 in Belfair. Regardless, we're open Saturday, Sunday at every station, and that's been a big deal.
Thank you for doing that.
Oh, no kidding. I mean, we've got a lot of compliments from that, really. And at first, our staff and myself were kind of wondering, you know, because we weren't even filling a trailer full. We easily fill a trailer, almost 2 trailers every Sunday now, which is, that's like 50 tons. on a
Well, and that gives
Saturday.
people a place to go on the weekends instead of, you know, the forest or.
Well, exactly, yeah. You know, that's, because I spend a bit of time grouse hunting and out here and stuff, driving around, and some of my favorite roads were getting pretty trashy, and they're not that way anymore. They've been cleaned up by somebody, Dave, but it's looking a lot better out and about, just even out behind Eels Hill. That was the biggest place.
When I first became a commissioner, one of the things I thought we might do was have free dumping and have it in the property taxes. I'd seen it in other counties, only to find out that before we ever got a chance to actually talk about it, those counties were dumping that plan because it wasn't working. Still, they were still dumping everything out in the woods, even though it was free dumping for them. It didn't have the effect that they thought it was going to have.
Right. Well, and thankfully, we ordered, received 2 new yard goats because we are getting a lot more trash. We need to move things around a lot more reliably and quickly. So that's been helpful, along with our new roll-off truck, which I think has got a lot of the other larger truck owners around here a little bit jealous. It came pretty fancy. So that's been nice. It's kept over here. It's washed every week. We had a lot of rat problems with other vehicles. So we're definitely parking vehicles away from where rats might be.
And hats off to Richard and our ER&R crew and Mike's team for coordinating, making sure that the team is well-trained, that they're operating and taking good care of this new equipment. Our equipment damage has been bad,
Yeah.
and that's huge, so that's a great collaboration.
Oh, yeah, coordination really between not just the R&R, but roads, and it for us has been a godsend, really. I mean, it helps us save money. We have a hole in the floor at the Eels Hill transfer station, and on it just like that, get it patched up for us so we can continue to operate and be safe, because you get those big trucks back in, they try to offload it. It wouldn't take much to float on its side. So that's been really good and helpful. Again, we actually are doing much better with our compaction rates. There's always room to improve. It depends a lot on the time of year, how dry it is, the type of garbage coming in, but we've been able to keep our compaction up, and partially that's, thankfully, you were able to get us a backup compactor, so we have no downtime now, so we can keep those compactions going, because that is a piece of equipment that gets the heck beat out of it. I mean, it's a compactor, that's its job, so it does suffer some damage. Kevin actually cleared the site of excess brush, the old landfill part, so we can hopefully get closure. That's a big requirement. Of course, staff has been doing other maintenance items, has replaced the stairs at Hoodsport. I believe they got those stairs at Union replaced as well, just for safety reasons. We've implemented further security measures at Eels Hill. Kelly helped us with that by putting another secure keyed entry door, well, actually coded entry door to the safe room, so that you have to go through 2 of those and have cameras on you the whole time to get access to the safe. Let's see, and along with just those safety measures, and we handle cash, we went through with the treasurer's office and had a rerun on cash handling procedures with all staff and get them up to date, and this is something we'll probably be doing every year just to be as a refresher. And along with that,
we just completed an outside audit review.
Yeah, exactly. Had the outside auditors review that, state auditors. And we actually just had the state auditor down and sit down and go through all of our procedures with Kevin and make a site visit and witness it for herself. We've got a full and pretty robust SWAC membership now, which is awesome.
Are you having fun?
The things you never thought you'd learn, or,
Yeah.
or the things you never thought you would want to know.
Want to learn?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And
I
yours-
attended, what was it, 1 or 2 meetings years ago and walked away going, damn.
Yeah.
It was a pretty impressive group.
Yeah,
Looking
this-
forward to a tour of the recycling centers.
And actually, we just had League of Women Voters came out for a tour of the solid waste facility, and that went really well.
Good.
Yeah, I think it was really good. We drove up on top of the landfill part so we could, get a good sight of what's going on. And one of our SWAC members, Linda Links, is a member of the League of Women Voters, and kind of put it out there, like try to get more participation from her group, which was nice, and they had a lot of good questions. It was really pleasant. And lastly, but not least, we advertised, received quotes for long haul services. As you know, we ended up with a 6-month extension with Republic Services at no cost increase, and we continue to negotiate with the low respondent Mason County Garbage. So that's where we're at with our accomplishments for this year. goals, we continue to work closely with Mason County Health and Department of Ecology to satisfy all of our closure requirements, remaining closure requirements. We expect to get the final report from our testing early in 2024 to submit to Environmental Health and DOE for their review. And hopefully we've made it. And we're going to continue to build on our work efficiencies and actually, we've got a few more that we'd like to implement. Whether we get a contract with the low respondent who had a really good idea, the other company didn't, and in my mind is like that's something we need to have is like the trucks have scales. We tie them to it. We can see the weight from where we're at. We don't have to drive up, weigh it up. It's not high, heavy enough. Come back. Big waste of time. Like I said, bottleneck really is a huge bottleneck. It causes 3 more bottlenecks for the traffic trying to get to those certain scales too. So that right there would, to me, it would save hours every day. And with a staff of 4 operators, that's big time stuff for us. It's 20% of their work we can reduce and increase our load rates, like real time. So that's something we're looking at. Let's see, and we're continuing to work on our, gotta say this right, contamination reduction and outreach plan for solid waste recycling. That's a 3-year plan, and this will be year 2 that we're working on, and so we've got requirements to work through with that and through it to SWAC and to bring to you, and yeah, stay tuned, it's coming. And we also have a need and a desire, and we're researching it right now, is to replace all the outer station where they work. The operator stations, they're really, a lot of them are in pretty disrepair. There's only 3. There's no bathroom, there's no facilities to them. They were older, made out of wood. They've been penetrated by rats and rodents, and we fight that a lot. And it's just like, I think we could probably come up with something. The steel job shacks that you see, they get delivered, they come with those facilities in them. We'd have to maybe talk to Kel and see about developing it a little bit more, talk to Dave maybe and see about maybe septic system at some of these outer sites and see what we can do to improve that for our staff and for the whole facility.
That would be cool.
Let's see, and then we would like, you can see, this is like a two function thing for me. Killing the bottleneck. This is also going to be my budget narrative.
Smart man.
Smarter, not harder. Right. So you'll see it's like purchase new skid steer with attachments, cleverly thrown in there. Just thrown in there. That would be a goal for that. We have a way to work around that because we do coordinate well with the R&R and roads, and they have that, and that's how we cleared the brush the last time. And another good thing we thought about doing is, and are doing, is evaluate the customer flow patterns. Just seeing how they come in, where they go, how many are commercial, residential, at what times a day, and how can we reduce these lines in and out of here? What makes the most sense? One thing that we've seen that would be a great idea is to peel a road off before you get to the scale shack if you just plan on recycling.
That's what they do in Kitsap.
Right, just cut over, get out of that line, because it's just a big waste of everybody's time and space to get up there and go, I just got recycling, okay.
What makes it even more, sometimes they have half recycling and then half not. They just dump off part and then.
Yep. So we're checking those things out, and the other is is separating commercial out of that line. We do have that back gate. This is something, in my mind, that I've talked about, but we've got to go through SWAC and get it out there.
Well, in a separate scale, right?
Separate scale through that back, autonomous scale that they can go through, non-commercial, and we don't have to mess with them.
Do you have something drawn up that, your idea, your dream?
I don't, but it would be pretty easy. If you want a really good drawing, I'd have to talk with Mike.
You got your back.
Okay, see, that just like.
But then again, if we look at contracting out the whole process at the end, it may be a moot point anyway.
Exactly. So it's a goal, it's something that we're evaluating for possible future improvements. And the same with the household hazardous waste operation, just right now, what do I, because I don't know. Just what is the real need and how does it come in and how best can we meet that need? Because right now, I mean, it is what it is, but we're also looking at a huge expense. And I gotta say that one of our respondents to our long haul contract had a great idea. And it didn't involve us handling, anymore or providing a facility, but more of like possible contracted household hazardous waste events.
Yeah, is it better to go out in the community rather than have the community come to the facility? Would we get better response?
Yeah, it's something
Periodically
worth
rotating through.
investigating.
I will always worry about that because of the history again. Been here for a long time, and I remember when I was with the Port of Allen, and they had facilities out there for newspapers and other things, and they had things set up, and people would drop off or put in there some of the most gosh awful things you can imagine. But they also put it right next to it and didn't put it inside there. They, you'd have paints and that's batteries and but many other chemicals that were dropped off there. And you know that they know it's wrong, but it doesn't matter. If you have a facility even close to it, that's just what they do. So I would worry about that.
Yeah,
Right.
no, you need people monitoring.
Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it'd have to be manned.
Yeah.
Yep. And of course, last but not least, well, there's more than that. I got a few more things. I'm still seeking more funding sources for capital work that we have, interest in doing. And remove and replace existing asphalt tipping floor. They keep getting holes developed in instead of having to patch it to do a permanent repair to it. Because it was just blacktopped. It was blacktop over dirt. That's currently is what is there. Our tipping floor. So we're looking at concrete and so it'll last. But right now, yeah, it's the last thing that was done out there was it's put like 3-inch lift over dirt.
No base?
No.
The dirt.
Just dirt, yeah. So I mean,
Nature's base.
so thankfully, Rhodes has had our back on that.
It's like a little mini ridge over there.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it really is. Okay.
And
we're
then
gonna
we've
go
got
to-
the solid waste management plan update for next year as well, and coordinating that with the comp plan update as well.
Yeah, we've got a lot of plans that are going to have to be coordinated with your plan that we're speaking of next. So, well, let's just stop right there. Do you have any questions for solid waste?
Are we still tracking to get under contract with Long Haul in November?
I believe so, yeah.
Yes.
It's like I haven't talked to Mark for a little bit.
Yeah, although we were locked in on our other long haul for 6 months, but yes.
And then have there been any recent issues of full trailers hanging out after
No.
hours?
Mm-mm.
That's resolved itself?
Yeah, we're down to, I think we have 9 trailers right now there, where Mason County Garbage has 4 remaining that they'll have out today, and then Republic had 5 full ones there last night, so it's that's a lot better.
Okay.
And Richard, the haul is now being conducted by Brady at this point, is
Yep.
that correct? We switched
Yeah,
over
that
on
just started
first.
Monday. Well, actually Sunday, but there wasn't nothing else.
Yeah. Okay. That's all I have.
Okay, ready to go to North Bay?
Oh, let's do
So just doing a quick time check. kind of, let's highlight some things and really focus on goals for '24.
Okay.
Next week needs to be finished by noon.
Yep.
This will be pretty easy, much easier. I gave you the standard stuff, but we're utilizing SmartGov as much as we can. We were doing better when Justin was here, I'll say that. Michelle's great with it, I'm not. So I've really got to get into it. Which Michelle's also done a good job about improving her collections of overdue accounts. The final thing at the Lakeland Pump Station was achieved. We got the automatic transfer switch installed this year. The pumps were replaced and the panels were rebuilt last year. So that station is in great shape. Overflow storage, effluent ponds were all emptied this summer and cleaned and inspected for the annual impoundment inspections. Retrained staff again on troubleshooting and repairing grinder pumps. Found a great resource called YouTube. Got all kinds of videos, tell you how to pull a pump, how to rebuild, how to change everything about them.
Write that down. It's .com, right?
Just in
Yes,
case.
YouTube, it starts with a Y. Okay, and big deal, Mason County Code, Chapter 13, utilities, I'd say 90+% rewritten. We don't have the rate stuff quite all figured out yet, and that's about what's left before I can say, hey, this is presented to you. And that's for all utilities. Yeah, oh, good. We did troubleshoot and repair TPU pump station electrical issues, which was kind of, anyway, that's repaired. It's a long, weird story. And of course, an RFP was published for his facility plan, general sewer plan update, which was last done in 1998. Scoping effort is current. Right now, we're right in the middle of that, and we should begin the process before the end of this year. Of course, I'll have to bring it to you so we can get a contract, and then we'll be off and running. Of course, 2024 goals every year for all wastewater utilities, 0 permit violations is my goal. It's hard to achieve because you just even have a late submittal. That's it. That's a violation. So it's really tough to get. Then, of course, develop the new general sewer facility plan in concert with the county's overall plan. We've got some collection system repairs to reduce I&I that we need to make. We actually did find one person that has their gutters hooked up.
Oh,
Who do you call?
Oh, it's fine, I'll let him
Oh,
finish the roll.
no, yeah. And when we get Lindsay back, we're going to hopefully maintain our existing staffing levels of 7 operators. I've got 6 right now, so we're doing much better. I really have 7, but Lindsay's out on maternity leave, so hopefully she decides to come back. We've been, of course, cross-training, that's standard. Complete required maintenance projects that have been deferred, specifically the spray field maintenance. I don't know when the last time maintenance was ever done out there. It's more about just, it has the brush grown up over your sprinkler risers, right? It's spraying right into them and it's dripping and ponding. You can't do that. So we just got to go out and do some of that brush trimming work and replace sprinkler heads that are gone. Of course, this all prepare reporting documents, maintain our permits, improve operation. New rate structure, that's another big goal to get completed this year. That's about as fast as I can do North Bay.
Yeah, there's North Bay, Richard's been coordinating with DOT on their Victor project. And
Good one,
so
yeah.
that will be work that we will need to accomplish next year also. We'll have a little bit of design work and then some removal and replacement of our pressure sewer line within the state highway and then hanging it on a new structure.
Yep. So that'll be occurring. Actually, you're going to get briefed on it next week. So we have a little bit of design effort to take care of, and then the construction will be WisDOT's contractor will do it as part of their contract is the proposal. And it'll just be a kind of optional work bid, so we'll know what it is. Okay, any questions?
My comments will be for overall.
Okay.
So I'm good.
Okay. Same, okay. Russellwood Water and Sewer. Okay, we got 145 connections in just a second. Let me see. I got an update.
Hot off the press.
Hot off the press, yeah. Okay, we have one meter left to put in.
Wow.
And it's exposed right now. We've got to coordinate with PUD
The
because
very last meter.
the very last one. water meter.
Promise.
They're all of the last 10 have just been absolute nightmares. Now I know why the contractor kind of walked away from it. Okay, so there you go. Water meters are damn near complete. Again, we're trying to utilize SmartGov, and I've got to get better.
I can come help you with that. I'm gonna put you on my list.
Okay, that'd be helpful. Maintain direct communication, working relationships with the Russellwood Homeowners Association, and that's also proven to be very, very helpful and a very good thing to have going on, especially when you got emergencies. They get the word out really, really quick, and they've been, like I said, very helpful. It's been wonderful. We did do some source water testing. I don't know what those results are, and that was for that iron and manganese kind of issue. Yeah, so I gotta double check with Lindsay. I mean, I get lab results back daily. It gets lost in the shuffle of them. We did have a sanitary survey about 2 weeks ago and did really, really well with that. We only had a couple of items of concern to repair. One of the biggest one really was one of our access hatches was totally rusty. It's made out of steel. So if you move it, rust particles drop into the water. So not good. That should be pretty low expense to repair that. We did purchase new reservoir inspection equipment, which is basically a clear straw with a foot valve so you can see what's in there. Maybe take a column of water and see what we got. That's been very helpful. Of course, the rest goes with the chapter 13. It falls in that rewrite and the reporting and proof collections and all that stuff all apply here too. And this one's gonna be a little different because we got the water consumption-based rate structure, and that'll be a fun one to go through. So 2024 goals for Russellwood is improve on our current levels of efficiencies, provide operator flexibility, and implement new rate structure, prepare all reporting documents, 0 violations.
Richard, and then we also have outfall work on the plant as well, correct?
Yeah, that was
And then our
another,
nutrient-
thank you. That was another one that was surprising to me. Apparently our outfall, they had an inspection in 2018 and it was found to be damaged. Found to be actually separated. And it currently is. And so we had a new, all of DOE is new right now. All of my contacts and staff are brand new in the Southwest Regional Office, and which is good because they bring up things that they're researching. Anna Milford, our new enforcement person, said, "Hey, what are you going to do about your outfall at Russellwood?" I said, "What about it?" Totally ignorant to the facts. It just wasn't ever on my radar. Nobody else brought it up, and she says, "Oh, well, it's separated, it's broke out there." And she sent me the report that they had sent in 2018. So that is something that Bart had actually hired, I can't remember if it was parametrics or not, to look at, does it make sense to repair it, or is there enough dilution in the acute and chronic mixing zone that we don't have to worry about it? And it's like right on the border. I mean, to me, it's like, why didn't we just fix it? Because now if we're right on the border with our results, I don't want to be nitpicking on the border with ecology. I mean, that's just a waste of money. So anyway, I'll have conversations with ecology about their preference, which way they would rather see it go. She's brand new. I'm pretty sure she can just say, just fix it. I don't disagree. I really don't. It shouldn't be that big of an effort. But anyway, it's something we have to look at and evaluate. And like I said, our regulators are aware of it. They made me aware of it.
Commissioners, that's something probably all departments would echo. So I know Richard wrestles with it, I know Mike wrestles with it. We have all new players in our regulatory and partnering agencies, whether it's the folks that we receive grants from or the folks that are regulating us. And as you know, those connections and that collaboration is so vitally important to making things happen smoothly. And so again, hats off to Mike and Richard and team for reestablishing, just jumping right in, making sure that we're making those connections and continuing to communicate on a regular and persistent basis. It really takes.
Oh yeah, we've had them all out, invited
Yeah.
them all out. Let's go on a tour.
Yes.
Let's see what you got.
Yes.
Let's talk. I mean, let's meet each other. Let's meet the operators. I want my operators to meet you and talk to you, and don't sugarcoat anything to them. Make them understand what's the deal. And so all those things have happened, which has been great, because I did give them no forewarning and said, hey, I'll be out. Can you unlock the gate? I'm going to be there in like 10 minutes. I got like 5 people from ecology here, and they're like, what?
And the other thing I wanted to highlight is that Richard has, for all of our permits, we want to meet that 0 violation goal. But a huge partner in achieving that is our labs. And again, Health Department can echo, I'm sure, the challenges with the labs. You have to be certified, you have to be manned, peopled, you have to turn reports around in a timely manner, and that has been a huge challenge as well.
It's been terrible.
So it's lab shopping, and again, it's not unique to us. It's been a problem statewide.
Oh, every discharge around Puget Sound right now. The ecology said, we really didn't think that through. We have all these nutrient requirement tests, and every one of us got a new permit with all new tests, and it overwhelmed the labs. So.
Who were struggling to begin with.
No.
Trying to restaff and regroup and.
Yeah, so it's
that's been a challenge. We're not.
When you get your results like 3 months later, then I mean
You're done.
You have to submit your whatever report on time, whether you have all your data or not. So you have to do that, submit it, and then they'll send you thing. You're in violation. Well, you get some of your data back. As soon as you get it, you have to resubmit. Some permits you're submitting 3 times.
So those
So and there's 5 of them.
those that you send out to the labs, they're not something that we can do in-house?
That is a potential option, but that's a costly thing. You go through a certification process. I believe
Yep.
you had an in-house lab,
Yeah, I got rid of
correct,
it,
Dave?
yeah.
And then let that go?
Yep.
Yeah, unless you got the work going all the time.
Yeah, we just couldn't keep up with certifications for the lab and the people, and it just didn't have the volume.
So
Could we-
we're working it.
I don't want to go down too much of a rabbit hole here, but like, I mean, is that something where we could be a provider for other people who are running into similar issues and recoup some of the cost that way and have a more even workflow?
Because if we're having issues getting the test results back quick enough, I'm sure that others are also.
Oh, yeah,
So if that's a
for
service
sure.
that we could, I love that idea.
Well, it's, yeah, I don't
If-
know for sure. I know, I mean, we're used to work live. They have full service laboratory. They do everything themselves. And they used to do outside testing, but they don't do it anymore. And I don't know exactly why.
Well, it's amazing.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Pretty impressive operation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
A lot of it, I mean, it's all time sensitive, heat sensitive, obviously. So you need to be able to draw from customers that are close enough to make use of it. Otherwise, it's just not, yeah, worth their time, basically, or feasible, both. Richard, I know sorry, but we've got Belfair and
Beards Cove.
Beards Cove, so maybe just some
Highlights?
really quickie highlights on,
Issues you think the board needs to be aware of, and then they can actually go through and have already looked at the materials we provided, so if they have opportunities to ask questions, they can, but you just kind of want to highlight some of the major things.
I mean, the biggest thing for, for Beards Cove, as far as accomplishments go, that you haven't already heard of that didn't apply to another utility, is all the water meters are in, and we've had at least one meeting with the public out there. And so that would be like the biggest thing, because not a lot happens out there. I mean, there's water breaks.
They call me all the time.
Well, when it happens, it happens.
it happens. Yeah, so our goal for next year is lining out and getting some preliminary engineering and hunting down grant revenues for our AC. We do have money already for some AC replacement, thank you, but
Yeah.
there's a substantial amount of AC pipe replacement that needs to occur.
Yeah, pretty much, I think Division 8 is the only one that isn't served by AC pipe. And that's the minimum amount of homes, everything else. And you gotta think, you got the pipe that runs usually down one side of the road, but then there's a service to that lot, a service to this lot, a service to that lot, and it's asbestos cement, so you don't want to remove the pipe, you leave it in the ground, and you put a new pipe down the middle of the road and replace those services, reconnect them, but you end up redoing the whole road. So think of that, I mean, it's not just replacing the pipe and the services is invasive and upsetting, and you're right in a you're right in a bee's nest trying to do your work, but then you can't leave them with a road that's just really tore up. It's the cost of the whole road too, for miles.
So on this Friday, we have a meeting with our representatives and senator, and we're going to be going over our utilities. So Friday, we'll be meeting out here and then hopefully be able to take a little field trip out in the field and go look at some of our facilities. But this is a request that we'd asked the legislative support for in the past, something that we'll continue to ask for.
So that's basically Russellwood. And I know you probably get some complaints about water pressure, very low water pressure, and I mean, something eventually can be done about that. I mean, you'd have to put a pressurization system right there at the reservoir, because those are the people that complain that live right below it. And they just have head pressure. It's about 28, 30 PSI. So if they're trying to water their lawn, they're not taking a shower. And that's how they've been forever. I mean, I get it. I'm with them. It's like, that's terrible. It should be at least 50, 60 PSI so you can do at least two things at once. Again, that's something we'll have to look at, more like some grant money to, try to accomplish that. It would be a huge undertaking, but there's some considerations.
Belfair, we're trucking along, obviously, on our extension project, and the goal for '24 is have that wrapped up in a timely manner to take advantage of our best interest rate, and we appear to be on track on that, Richard.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So they're about ready,
Just
finally,
about ready to do the bore.
to do the bore.
We get everything's ready to go. Thank
That's-
God.
Yeah.
What else is going on?
And then remaining work on that is our RFQ to get out for the design across to serve the commercial industrial property on the west side
Yep.
of SR3. So that will get out the door this year and complete that design wrap up in early '24. That ready. What other exciting Belfair things on the sewer side?
Well, I know
The
I was
reclaimed
expecting
water.
maybe 20, 30 CFCs this year, up on top of that hill, I think we've had like 80. And we've had over 100, I know you probably, I have no idea what the total number of applications for Olympic Bridge has been to date.
I don't know today. That's a good question.
It's a lot, though. There's a lot more than I expected.
Yeah, they want 6 per month, and we're trying to stay ahead of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've been submitting 10 plus per month easily.
I took a trip up there when I took the videographer around Mason County and got in trouble for going on one of the sites, and one of the construction guys from Lennar was like, hey, what are you doing over here? And so I had a chance to talk to him a little bit and explain who we were and what we were doing. But he told me that every 30 days he was getting another house complete. And as fast as they were getting them complete, they were sold.
That's a pretty decent price point. It really is for
Yep.
what they're doing. I go up there about every week because my daughter likes to have her McDonald's up on top of that hill.
Yeah.
So
It's a pretty place.
that's where we go. We get McDonald's, go up there and eat it.
Yep.
Go to
Great views.
Site 118, one overlooking everything beautifully.
Yeah, we're gonna have a great view.
Yeah. So, yeah, there you go. Any questions?
So I had 2 kind of areas to touch on. One, Mark, you kind of teed this up already, but, you know, just a little bit of discussion around what our asks might be on Friday. We don't have a lot of time to be together between now and 1 o'clock on Friday, so just, I think, are we just basically re-upping what we submitted last year?
I think that those are our priorities.
Has that changed? So it feels pretty, like
Yep.
that's pretty stable.
Yeah, give them some perspective of where we're at with our utilities and the challenges that we have, especially on some of our smaller utilities where you can't take those costs and spread them out over 144 people. But they're essential for operating the utility.
Okay. And then the other one, so we do still have this interlocal agreement with the Port and City of Bremerton
Yes.
to evaluate sort of, you know, some regional options. I saw that the Port of Bremerton recently had sent a letter to the City of Bremerton talking about the need for capacity and giving over some of the authority to the city to do that. And so it might be, especially, because I think there's this bigger rate conversation that we're in the middle of too, that we're not yet complete with. And so it's just like, let's start to have some conversation around this so that we have some sense of where the port wants to go, some sense of where the city wants to go. And if it aligns with our interests, then what do we want to do with that? But we're not going to be able to make good decisions without actually engaging in those discussions, I think. And so, given some of the indications from the Port of Bremerton, now might be a good time. We still have a few months left on that ILA, and let's just kind of maybe start figuring that part of it out. Happy to hear that you're moving forward with the ARPA money. That's a big deal. And so, but I'm also just concerned just about the general rate discussion that we're having with the other utilities, you know, and just trying to put a fine point on that as we head into this afternoon and later this week with our budget discussions. We don't have clarity or certainty on what we're going to do for a rate structure going forward. And I know that there's a lot of demands for your time and attention. That's part of the reason that we outsourced some of the rate analysis. And so it's just frankly a little bit disappointed and frustrated that we're not in a better position on the rate discussion, just because I thought when we went into this, the commission was somewhat clear that we wanted to have this kind of nailed down as we went into our budget discussions, and we're just not going to get there. And so the commission, we haven't had a chance to really talk about what our thoughts are on how to handle it. We do have some flexibility in code that puts some bookends on what we're able to do for a rate increase. But I don't know what the path forward is on adopting a new rate structure based on the work that our consultant did, but I'm just really concerned about our ability to utilize that going into 2024 without really having had that discussion publicly, and I think getting that feedback. I don't know where the other commissioners stand on that issue, but just a concern that I have moving into budget.
That was on my list.
Sorry.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and head off with the rate aspect. I know where after looking at, I know where I want to be. I want to be at that maximum allowance that we talked about and simplify it down that way. And that will bring down one utility, will bring up others, but at the same time, it'll bring it up within a understandable amount, in my opinion. I do believe we need to do a little bit more work on the secondary charge aspect. For example, Beards Cove is a great, or Russellwood. There's a certain cost that we have to do. We try and keep that as low as we can, keep it within that same parameter of what the maximum amount that they should have to carry. But choice usage is another story, and I think that we need to lay heavier on the choice usage. It's so funny because you come around, I was so against this when I first started at the port years ago, but that was done for the purpose of just restricting them, pricing them into a position where they would just not use the water for conservation. This is setting prices of a way to cover the actual costs for the facility, so I would just want to make that clear. And if you're going to choose to use more than the regular rate, I think that we need to have a much higher choice at that point, because it's not just what you can afford, it's what you're choosing to do. And so I hope that that's where we end up, as we're talking about our rates, and we actually find a way to move forward with it. Because of that, though, we're also going to have to look for grants, funds, maybe state capital monies and stuff in order to do some of the things we want to do. I also was wondering, when we're talking to our legislators, have we ever thought about, I know it's always sexier to have one project go after that, but could we consider maybe a utility ask, which is an ask for everything that, not everything, an ask in one bubble that would cover different things in order to help set our utilities rate offsets or something like that, to have those discussions. The other thing is a simpler one. Every year we're coming up on the season where we're going to have certain breakdowns, we're going to have certain things because of water coming into the systems, we're going to have pumps that are going out, and we've started to go through a process of redundancy. I would just like to remind you that I'm sure that the other commissioners would agree, but I'll leave that to them. Redundancy in this particular situation is a good thing. Having those extra pumps, having those extra things, because when not, it costs us so much more money to do it. But more than that, we leave people in a very bad position while we're trying to figure it out. So I'm still in favor of the redundancy process that we started a few years ago, and we're getting better at. And I would look forward to seeing you bring forward things that can help offset that before it happens to us this year. And then the Russellwood outfall could be part of the other, and if you do an ask for the Russellwood outfall, we already know that the rates and the utility itself cannot cover it. It would have to be a REIT ask, or it could be an ask with legislators. And that's mine. Or both.
Yeah, I just did other remarks. I think one of my biggest concerns was the rates and how we've had a couple of discussions, but we really need to work on those. And I know you guys are short-staffed, and because you brought that up too, but we might be short-staffed, but we still have responsibilities to our constituents, so.
A big positive is that we actually have hired a new person that'll be starting
The
October
16th of October.
Finance?
Find a new finance manager, yeah.
That was
So,
one of my
been a couple years since I've been here, we haven't had one. We had a real tough time recruiting for him, and I'm super excited about the person that we found. I think that she's going to come in and do a great job and be a good addition to the team.
That's what we said last time.
Just saying.
That's why there's a probation. I agree with Commissioner Nyland's maybe assessment of how we approach our legislative asks. And, sometimes we think, how could they ignore, $150,000 ask? Like, that seems like really low-hanging fruit. We should be able to walk out of a legislative session with at least getting that funded, right? But sometimes, the legislature defies common sense. And when you have a more sizable ask, that might be a more appealing target for them. And so obviously, it didn't work for us last session with the low amount, and so, you know, maybe there might be some benefit to us having a consolidated utility ask in terms of, you know, our success, even though, you know, being mindful, it is a short session, and, you know, they're gonna lowball us, as they should. You know, they're gonna have a lot of requests, but, you know, I think just being able to be, you know, having a longer-term view strategy of how we approach these, there's probably some benefit to having a consolidated utility ask, even though the systems themselves are, you know, individual systems, but, you know, that, we have to, you know, that might be a good conversation for our lobbyist as well,
Yep.
you know, and then kind of getting her opinion.
Well, and
on
if
it.
you saw the most recent revenue outlook, they are going to be sitting in a pretty good position, so it's nice to have that.
Also want to put out there that we said, in the past, we've told them that we would put together options and bring it back to the community. I still, even though I want to move fast on this, I think it's still necessary. One of them is simple. This is the costs for maintenance, operation, and debt. This is what we really should be charging. We can do that, and we can keep your system on the straight and narrow without a doubt, planning for the future. Or we can just hold off on not doing this stuff for the future. We establish this rate, this rate, this rate, and then the other is a rate with this maximum amount and the ability to charge for extra, or just wrap it all up and everybody pays the share whether they use it or not. Now, we all know where they're going to choose, but at least it's their option, not just ours. Then we get out to the public quickly.
Great. So thank you, Richard.
Yeah.
Mike? Sorry.
Can I ask just a real quick utility question, Commissioners? We've often touched about the question about privatizing. You've raised it, whether it be solid waste or some private-public partnership, or the same on our utility side. And if that is something that we want and need to specifically bring back with some clear questions and options, I need to get that on our radar for '24. I know that you've raised it on several occasions.
Have the PUDs ever come to you?
Oh, no. We're constantly poking the PUDs, and they're constantly running the other direction.
Saw Richard going around looking for sell by owner signs.
It's been a united front on a regular basis.
Now, over the years, they have come to us and they have wanted to do it, but they always want to cherry pick. That's why it doesn't work. Now, we had one commissioner that liked the utility a lot and wanted to give it to them, but we have to remember that our people that we hire service the whole thing.
Yes.
If we change what they're servicing, it changes what we have, and we are at a situation where we don't have a lot in the first place. We need to do as much as we can with them. If not, then that cost goes on to that utility.
Yep.
Because it's the same amount of people, so
Absolutely.
it is an economy of scale. So I'd always be interested in listening to what it would look like for the whole picture. I'm not one that would be looking for
To
pieces.
part and parcel out.
Yeah.
So are you talking specific, you're talking generally in utilities, not just on solid waste?
I'm talking both.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
because I've heard you express that for both.
Well, I think there's, you know, there's kind of, when we're thinking about solid waste, that conversation is very different because we'd be looking at privatizing.
Yes.
And the question would be, can the public sector provide this service, this public good, more effectively for the customers than the private side? And I think so that you have to evaluate them under different lenses, you know, because on the utility side, it's likely going to another public provider. And so I think there's always a worthwhile discussion to have is should we remain in this business? Is this something that we think is are we still providing the best service possible? You know, and I think that's kind of the frame that I would put on it. So I'm not opposed to having that conversation in 2024. I think it's probably a good one to have, but it's going to, the context and how we evaluate each of those utilities is kind of going to be key for me.
I'm going to agree with that, because I hadn't thought about that aspect of it. If you're talking about solid waste and you're talking utilities, they're different. I have no problem, but I look at either one of them as a whole, not as in a parcel, but I would be interested to see what it looks like. Although I'm very supportive of that, of the organization, it all comes down to the end. What is the numbers? You know, will we be doing our community a favor, or will we be hurting them by doing away? We don't know that unless we see the numbers. When Shelton did what they did, I remember how angry people were and still are.
Still are.
Yeah, and they feel like they're in a position now where they'll never be able to get back the service the representation they had. Don't know what it looks like. We have to see somebody put it together first.
Pros and cons,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, on the solid waste side too, we're pursuing a different path with long haul, so you'd have one company that controlled both curbside and long haul for the first time in
Yes.
30 plus years probably. And then you look at if we were to privatize the transfer station operations overall, what would that response? What would responsive bidders look like? And have we created a complete monopoly on the solid waste side? So in this way, under the current system, a benefit, not necessarily like a deciding benefit, but one benefit is that there is still some public interest and public control over that, especially for people who aren't curbside customers, and so there's some protection there for people who are self-haulers. So I would also be kind of weighing that in any kind of decision going forward.
I don't think any of our decisions are easy, but having the information we need helps.
I know I've expressed to that other company that was talking about even going for that it'd be a non-starter for me if I watched them do what just happened in Kitsap when they raised that rate to $48 to come in with one barrel. How does that help my community? And how do we protect that from happening to them? Because although it sounds good in the beginning, in the end, if that's what they can change it to, that would devastate my community.
Well, especially if we're thinking about trying to reduce litter and, dumping on, whether it's private or public lands. We should be looking to reduce barriers to getting people into the transfer stations, not the other way around.
So no more, we only have like 45 minutes.
Yep.
Thank you.
And I'm going to go to the bathroom.
Okay.
All right.
So
Feel
while
free to
we're
continue.
taking a quick, well, one of us will take, we'll continue. Invite Mike up, and Mike, you guys have done a ton of work, and I think that was represented in the materials that are presented. So maybe if you could highlight a couple of those that we're super proud of, but then focus on the work that we have planned, which I think that the board has seen some of this through TIPCAP, right?
Yeah, the 6-year plan there.
So maybe-
Yeah.
Yeah, Dave gave a presentation of 2024 annual
Yep.
program, 6-year program last week, so they should be up to speed on that.
You did a good
Things that
job,
we
too.
accomplished this year from the construction program, I'll just go through a few of the bigger ones. The Harstein Island Bridge polymer overlay, that's going to get completed this year. Yes, we are scheduled for a milling project but we're 6 weeks out on that. If that doesn't work, there is an asphalt overlay that can be done. So,
Just so you know, the community is starting to correct themselves.
oh yeah.
So you've got people that are angry about it, and got other ones that are saying, if that's the worst thing you have to deal with, when you get up in the morning, give me a break.
Yeah.
So,
We get both calls.
yeah.
Yeah.
We did a good project on Mason Lake STP project, a paving project. That was a continuation from last year. We did convert 3 gravel roads this year, about almost 5 miles, Sunnyside, Kelly Hall, and Sunny Slope. So those have been turned out great if you get a chance to look at them compared to what they were. Let's see, Sunny Slope. North Island Drive culvert, that's out, we went out to bid, awarded the contract. It will be in construction for next year. And Old Belfry Highway was one that we're pretty proud of because we used county forces work to prep that. So we did all the dirt work and then we contracted out the pave job. So that turned out really nice. Trails Road alternate route, we are in the process of negotiation about purchasing some right-of-way there. So maybe we'll get that connection. And County Road guardrail project retrofit, that's going to be construction next year. I'm really proud of the staff because they actually went through 5 different federal projects from start to finish this year. And that's totally impressive in a real world. Way the local programs are helping now and stuff like that, it's a miracle. I mean, they've really impressed us. So one of them was the curve analysis, the other was the reflective panels, and then the other federal projects. The one project we did put on here recently, and Actually, we built it the same day we got it approved. This little shoe fly box culvert, we just stuck that in the ground. So that, with all the county forces maintenance, so that worked out pretty good too.
Pretty impressive, yeah.
Despite the border skirmish.
We did.
You got a territorial dispute?
We
Yeah.
did, we had a border skirmish.
As of maintenance side, we did the chip seal stuff. We did some asphalt pre-leveling up on Lakeland Drive, Homestead, Shadowwood, Sunrise. We did shoulder paving on Grapeview, Lynch, Shelton Matlock, Johns Prairie, McGreevy, Sand Hill, a little bit of everything, Rockdale. We replaced the superstructure on Rock Creek Bridge. We did some drainage work up there on trails. We replaced the existing drainage that was failed. We're going to monitor it, see if it reduces the pressure on that trail, on that slide, and maybe it'll work. We installed a large culvert at Sunnyside Road, and we also did, like I said, a little shoe fly.
Mike, one of the things that you shared with me was just the quality of workmanship from the crew. And also, I can't tell you how many emails we receive, and commissioners, you're great about passing compliments along as well, but folks say they're appreciative of the brushing, the quality work, the responsiveness, and the crew is just, can't say enough. None of this stuff happens without our people, and they're just doing an outstanding job. So, good job.
Yeah, I was at a Pack Mountain meeting last week, and Pacific County, one of their commissioners came up, and because I was bragging about our roads and how good they are and everything else, and they said, yeah, you still our guy. It's like, oh well. And they lost another one, so.
And actually, Mike said yesterday that a private contractor who did a little bit of contract work reported to Mike, he goes, that's one of the best paving jobs. This is quality work.
Yeah,
So-
Jim and I paving, he helped us on Homestead and Lakeland, because he has a larger machine, so we used our trucks, and he could push our trucks up the hill bigger than our machine. But then we went and did Shadowwood, and he came by, and he said, I got to tell you the truth, you did a great job. So the guys are doing really well. They want to do well, and that's the key.
I love the fact that Mike and Loretta utilize our staff to, we have limitations on how much we can utilize our staff, and so they've really been focused on how do we maximize that, and that pride of ownership, pride of workmanship, contributing back to your community. I really think that we see that in our crews here, and we're super fortunate to have the people that we have. So, amazing job.
And then the other thing, quick highlight, Mike and team have been incredibly successful on securing grants, and particularly the 100% zero match grants. Just received notice of award for 1.4 million, Mike, or just under 1.4 for another safety improvement grant on Shelton Matlock Road. That's nothing to sneeze at. It's awesome.
Any questions? Comments that you want for Public Works roads?
Since he's easy, I'll go first on that
Okay.
one. I got the main priorities. I'd like to see us finally address. The commission may have shifted what we're thinking, but if not, I really want to consider it. Years ago, we put money aside to do specific projects. I would like to see at least one of them actually get done, and one of them that I think that climbed to the top right now, because we have everything that's happening right now with the bypass, everything else, that actually gives us some time difference. I'd like to see us prioritize that Razor Road connection personally, for many different reasons. One, we put money in there with hopes of doing that. Two, it's an economic benefit for that community. It gives the ability to maybe stretch out the UGA in the future. But a while back, we gave away the area that was for economic development and turned it back into residential. This would give us an opportunity to create economic development areas up there on this side of by the Allen UGA for anything from industrial to commercial to anything else, which we can't do now because we cut off that one road up there. But if we did that and we opened back up to that, the economic benefits could be huge because there also could be residential, and that would mean more money coming into our tax base since we haven't been raising taxes in years. New construction is definitely a huge benefit to us. And if we were to do that, we'd also be creating access and hookups to the system that's out there if we move the UGA to allow for this type of thing so they can connect to the sewer. Health is a big factor out there, and crime. If we go ahead and we open up that road, we know that there's a lot of unhealthy things that have been occurring out there for many years, and crime as well, because it's closed off. You have to come all the way in from the side to get all the way close to the highway. And what's the old expression? Sunlight disinfects. We have a lot of bad things happening there. If we open it up, a lot of that will go away, or at least will be easier to get it to go away. I also want to point out that it's a safety aspect for everybody else because of access. Right now, it takes 21 minutes to get fire and law enforcement out to certain, on the other end of it. They established it would take 7 minutes if we were to put this road in. That's why both law enforcement and the fire departments put in letters over the years in support of us doing this and moving forward, because it completely changes everything that's out there. Again, I covered the future hookups. Access on another reason too. Years ago, there was something, I don't like to even use the word because it brings about people out of the woodwork to get angry. Back in the day, there was something to look at called the 101 connector. That's not what I'm looking at, but it still becomes an access, an ability to get from Highway 3 all the way to Shelton if something happens on Highway 3. Literally, we don't have that now. But if you have that changes everything, allows for that. And so it's another safety aspect, but it's also has other benefits. And I already mentioned the future UGA, the possibility of doing something with that. I think that this is an achievable goal to at least go through the RID process with it. I'm not supportive of us just taking and putting the money there. There's a whole bunch of people that actually live out there that currently pay $200 to $300 a year for their road system that has failed them because people have taken off with their money. What is it, 3-4 times in the last 10 years? They've literally left. They take all the money, they get it all paid in, and then somebody moves and takes it all with them, and sometimes the equipment and everything else. So they've been trying to survive this for years. We would have a ready-made stream of funds coming in for the next 20, 30 years by just having them convert their road fund to the RID. But again, we just established our first RID in all these years since I think the bridge area, the time when we built the bridge. This is a great opportunity to take what we just did, make it on a grander scale, and finally help to get it done. So for myself, I guess what I'm asking is not to have it built in this year, this next year coming up, but to have perhaps the whole RID structure, what it would look like, and the ability to move forward with it brought before the commission so we can make a decision if we wanted to do it or not. That was mine.
So a couple questions along those lines. So we have $150,000 put into the Razor Road connection in the TIP. What does that get us?
That's put in there for purchasing easements right away.
Okay. And then to kind of follow on what Commissioner Netherland said about the emergency access, might be more of a conversation to have with John, but is there any option that we might pursue for FEMA funding for resiliency or emergency preparedness that might go along with the
2024, yes.
So I think, you know, what I'm actually really looking for in all of these discussions is where we can have departments work with each other on getting these things accomplished. And so taking another path towards helping get this project moving by really leaning into the emergency preparedness side of it, I think is an exciting opportunity that we shouldn't forget about. So I'm all for seeing how we can move forward. And you know, the more outside funding that we can bring into a project like this, the more we're able to leverage that fund for future roads. Which, Loretta, do you know where that currently stands?
Where
How much do we have in that line?
4.5 million.
It's a lot.
It is.
So to be able to actually use it for the first time and would be would be
Well,
kind of exciting.
It is a lot, but when you think about what
Costs a lot.
it does.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I think it's a tool,
It's a great,
you know, and so there are things that would
tool
certainly
to
be able to
leverage
afford.
other-
Right, would be able to
We could
afford
use
out of that, but
leverage.
also, you know, when that first time comes around that Mike isn't successful in getting a zero match grant opportunity, I mean, I'm confident in you, but there might be a tie.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, I think just having that as a great leverage tool to go after some additional funding, and then, you know, we don't want to not put money into it, we want to use that, so, good
and
opportunity.
it will be needed because those types of projects are not, they don't marry up well with our traditional funding sources at all.
Mhm.
So FEMA is a great potential. And the other thing we haven't talked about and really looked at, but at some point North Shore is going to need a big rescoping. I mean, we just continue to get more and more traffic out there, and that's one that will need a lot of help. And I think that the FEMA resiliency is a good potential fit on that as well.
I know we're not finished here yet, but one thing that I've heard that really makes me happy is our departments talking to each other and us seeing it. So knowing that people, we need to do this more often, honestly, just so that we can see everybody working together and we're accomplishing things that, I don't know about you, but the three of us are pretty busy, and so we don't really see everything that happens when you guys are working together. So just knowing that, you know, SmartGov and bringing in IT and bringing in FEMA, and so all of this, everybody working together, there's so many things that we could do.
So perhaps I guess it's an ask from the commission, can we make that a priority and an ask that in this next year they come to us with a structured RID so we know how much money, what it would look like that we would have from that side, and the potentials of the other funding so that we could be at maybe a decision point at the end of the year, next year. And that's part of what I'm asking, is that we actually make that a request that it get done this year for having an RID, to be able to establish one if we decide to, not to make the decision, but to have all the pieces in place and all the opportunities for funding. Is that it?
I saw consensus. So, thank you. Moving right along, Mary, are you on?
I'm here.
So you want to jump in and kind of give a high overview of your materials?
Yes. So I think I can actually screen share here. Oh, never mind. Someone else is screen sharing. Oh, there we go. Thanks.
Screen shared you.
Right. So this is a quick update of where HR is for third quarter. The big things I just wanted to highlight were our contracts that we ratified. Total of 8. I only have 1 outstanding. That would be outside of being late for 24. So that's a really big accomplishment for HR, is getting these contracts done in a timely manner and starting before we expired, which has been amazing. And I think that our partnerships with the union and the employees has really benefited from this shift, and we're really building great relationships. For recruitment and hiring, NeoGov was implemented, which has, I think, been great. I don't have a lot of data yet because it's only been up for about 6-7 months, but by fourth quarter, I should have some better data of time to hire, where we're losing people in the process. But anecdotally, I do have a lot of information around number of candidates, quality of candidates. I think NeoGov has really been a great move for us recruiting-wise. We're attending recruiting events. We actually are going to be at Oyster Fest this weekend, so make sure you come out and see us. We have new stuff. And then our internship program pilot was this summer. We're going to have a debrief on that now that Loretta's back, and have a report forthcoming to the commissioners about what happened, what they did, costs, outcomes, deliverables, etc. Our presence online has increased. We're going to be expanding new employee orientation to have more getting the employees set up so that they walk to the office and sit down. They're already set up with email, and kind of try to take a little bit off the hiring managers if possible and make it a little bit easier for them when they transition into their workplace after being with us on the first or whatever day when they come to us. We're hoping to get into Munis once Chart of Accounts is done and start utilizing that more fully. Commissioner Netherland, I need a date from you for a third quarter employee town hall.
Lauren doesn't want to do that stuff. Okay.
Thank you. And then Mark will do our fourth quarter. We'll put
Yeah,
him
I
on.
can't do. Somebody take the bus off me, would you?
And then another priority for us this year has been HR getting out and spending time with the employees in the county. So we've spent time with roads. I got to help rake pavement or chip whatever it is. I can't even remember. I've been out to the transfer station. We've had our team go out to detention. Clerk's office, I got to spend some time in elections. So we're really trying to get out there and see what the work is that our employees are doing and get our faces out there so they know we're here and we're a resource. And then lots of personnel policy updates, which I'm sure you're sick of at this point, but they are going to keep coming. So, and then for 24, we're going to continue with our contracts that we're completing, getting those done before expiration in 24. Looking at total compensation packages, so where can we continue offering items like telework or the FSA, making sure people know that the flex spending account's available, et cetera. Making sure that we're working with hiring managers so they understand when they go to make offers to new candidates that they have what tools at their disposal to make the package more enticing. Like I said, with NeoGov, we can use it for statistical updates and KPIs. We're going to continue to be out in the community. We're going to St. Martin's, I think next week. We'll be there for a full day community fair. We're also going to be at the Law Enforcement Expo coming up. And I think I'm hoping the Sheriff's Office will be attending with us to help with recruitment issues over there. We're going to definitely do our internship program again. I had a couple different departments express interest, and then, see how those pipelines are going to benefit us. So it might be a year or two before we can see something like that, because they go back to college, they finish their degree, and then let's see if they end up coming back to Mason County. Also with the recompete, if we move forward with that, I think there might be some resources for us to go out and target our underrepresented or distressed communities in Mason County to start skill building or reskilling or upskilling to make them competitive here for Mason County as an employer. Want to make sure we're watching our retention rates, that our hiring managers are trained, that people aren't sitting on interview panels that are not trained on what to and not to say. Seeing how many of our employees are getting their performance evaluations. A lot of those contracts out there say employees shall receive annual performance evaluations. So I always encourage people to watch their contracts and make sure if that's a deliverable that they need to do, that they're getting that done. To your point of the Six Sigma, Commissioner Netherland, we're going to start watching our number of handoffs in our HR processes to kind of start streamlining and being more efficient in our work that we're doing. We'll do another employee engagement survey and measure year for year KPIs and what we need to be focusing on. I think the engagement with the commissioners this year has been a huge bonus. So I'm hoping we see that at this end of this year and in the survey. And then I also want to make sure that we're tracking our departments and hours that we're out in the field with employees next year. And then making sure our policies are updated and adopted, and making sure that if we're finding risks and then we're mitigating them, that we're keeping track of that so that we can report back to the commissioners on what we mitigated, where we're making improvements, or even where are our target areas of problems that we may need additional resources to address. So that is our 24 plan at a super high, fast level.
Thank you, Mary. Any questions from commissioners on that?
I would love to see, so when we started NeoGov, what's the difference between before and after? I mean, are we hiring, is it easier to attract now than it was? And because I know every county is having the same issue with the hiring, and so if we can get really creative and, you know, if we have to change, like Commissioner Netherland was talking about, the qualifications that some departments have to have, if we can work to change that so that we can attract more people, and get our numbers back up. Because everybody's, I know we're all low, we're all missing staff, every department, every elected has the same issue with, well, I guess not every, but if there was a way that we could be more creative in bringing in people, I know we've worked hard on our salary this year, and that was quite the goal. I'm so glad that we did that one. But I'm just wondering, what are we missing?
I think one of the things is we're starting to change the wording on the job postings and on the position descriptions that would create an equivalency. So if you have a master's degree, but you don't have 5 years experience, our hiring manager's open and willing to take a year for year of education versus experience. Why does it have to be 7 years specifically of experience for something? Why do you really need a bachelor's versus an associate's degree for something? So kind of challenging some of those main quals when the hiring managers are posting are conversations the analysts are starting to have, and I think are really important, because just because we did it that way before doesn't mean that that's what's realistic now. So I think wording in the position descriptions, challenging the hiring managers and pushing back to have them think a little bit about that, why, I ask why a lot, and then NeoGov I think is huge. I think it was Mackenzie or Diane's position, there were I think 60 applicants for one of the positions they had open. We finally got that finance manager position filled, which has been open for years. And I think that a lot of that has to do with NeoGov. The only downside to NeoGov or any hiring process is the hiring managers have got to move on these applicants. We wait too long and leave people in the pipeline to schedule interviews, to move them forward or send a notice that says you moved forward or you didn't. So I think that just, again, the data's not there yet, we haven't been up long enough, but I think anecdotally, we're seeing a huge improvement because of NeoGov.
So is that the department heads or is that HR that moves the process forward?
It's a combination. So it depends on the department. So some need a little more support and others are pretty independent. But it's a combination of HR getting the requisition and the posting going, and then checking with the hiring manager, and then really trying to get the hiring managers engaged in the process to start moving those candidates forward, or we're nudging them, hey, you have X amount of candidates in the pipeline, hey, you need to schedule your interviews, and kind of nudging hiring managers a little bit, but it's both.
Okay.
Mary, is there kind of like a best practice for how many applicants you should have in the queue before you start scheduling interviews, or how long you should let that queue remain open before you schedule? Kind of what's the practice?
It depends.
Great
I know
answer.
you love that answer.
No?
It depends.
Actually, I didn't hear it. That was his response. Great answer.
It does, it depends. So, like the finance manager, that would have been open so long, we needed to move on those quality candidates as they were coming in. We should not be waiting, because people are going to, if they're in NeoGov already and they've created their profile, they can simultaneously apply for 5 jobs at a time. So we have to move quickly. We have to get interviews scheduled and move them through if they meet main quals.
Thank you.
Whereas if you're like Diane's position and there are like 60 of them in there, then you could probably take your time.
To piggyback on what Commissioner Trask was talking about, maybe also the idea, if we do decide to lower, change, or adjust any type of requirements, that it's also met with the expectation that they will achieve that certification or whatever within a certain period of time. And then upon completion of the certification, an adjustment in pay.
I think that one might be a little bit of a deeper discussion, probably. I think there are things where we can, like I said, substitute education for experience or vice versa, but I also think if something's a min qual in the position description, then it's something they need to come in with. If it's something that, or needs to obtain within 6 months of hire, that's still a min qual because they're going to need it, whether it takes them a little bit or not. And so kind of avoiding that double paying for something that they should have as part of their position description and their essential functions. But I do think that there's options for us to be a little bit more flexible as we bring people on from a total compensation perspective.
Mary, along those lines, so, we want to be, obviously, we want to be responsive and we want to be getting people hired into these positions. But what has your conversations been like with departments about how to handle employees who are in their probation period and just ensuring that we did pick the right candidate for the position, and kind of what's that level of accountability during that probationary period to evaluate that?
Well, most contracts will say, when they need to be evaluated by, but that 6 months, I kind of look at it as an extension of the hiring process, right? That's your time to really make sure that they're going to be able to do what you need them to do. I think hiring managers are pretty aware of that and they utilize their probationary period appropriately. I don't know that actual physical evals are being done, but I know if there's a concern, department heads have been really good about reaching out. I know Kel had a couple and reached out right away and we talked through that. And so I think it's definitely conversations we're having, but I look at it as an extension of the hiring process. That's really your time to spend evaluating.
Yeah, I think what I want to avoid is us being in a position where we let things slide that could be problematic during a probationary period because we're afraid that we're not going to be able to fill that position. There still needs to be an expectation of a high level of, competency in these positions, and not sort of living in our fears that we'll never be able to fill that position again.
Yeah, I think we've had really good conversations around that. So even higher level positions, Mason County does not need to be held hostage by an employee that is a substandard employee or does not meet the essential functions or minimum qualifications. We can find someone else. If I get hit by a truck tomorrow, you'll find another HR director, don't worry. So I don't think the sun rises and sets with any one employee in this county. And so while they're here, we treat them great, but know that, we're not gonna be held hostage by an employee, and we can recruit, we can do it. There's a ton of talent out there. We just have to figure out where to tap into.
Thank you.
So moving right along, thank you, Mary. Budget?
Yeah, so commissioners, I have put together a project priority list for you. So we have, first is the ARPA funding. We've received a little under 13 million. We have about 6.5 million left, I believe. And so that is my top priority. I would like to get that spent hopefully by June of '24 so that it's not hanging out. We can have it obligated up until December of 2024. We have to have it completely spent by December of 2026. So it would be great if we can get that spent. And we've been nudging people to move along on those projects that are open, and so that's number one. The second, also very top priority, is the chart of accounts revision. That, as you know, we've been working on that for quite a while. Leo, our CFO, has really done the majority of the work on this. He's done an amazing job just doing the detail work and getting that done. I'm really helping to facilitate that with Munis and the departments, and getting the subsidiary systems to talk with Munis. So the treasurer has let me know that TerraScan, she's been working with them. They have been in touch with her on getting, they're working on it basically, and for a short explanation. So we're still hoping by January 1st of 2024 to have that done. We'll go from a 32-digit account code, thank you, to 20. So we're eliminating 12 digits that were unnecessary and streamlining that, and that will kind of open up the road to position control, and then the transparency module, and we want to start utilizing the grant module for the entire county. That will really help us know, what grants are out there for our county as a whole, and kind of get more on top of that, rather than, right now, the auditor's office, they get the grant information on the back end. So, and a lot of times it's a struggle for them to get that information from offices and departments. So I think getting that grant module up and running will really help them be able to see what's out there and been billed and outstanding. We have revisions to the purchasing policy. So so that's something that we have a draft that has circulated through the audit committee. I have sent that draft to the state auditor's office, and they came back yesterday with 2 very slight recommendations on wording and placement in the policy. So that'll be briefed to you next Monday, and hopefully we can have a decision made on that soon. I put on here motor pool written policies and procedures. We have, that's kind of a group effort. We have something started, and we need to revisit that. So maybe sometime next year we can get that implemented. We have ExecuTime. We need to purchase and implement that. That's after position control. That'll help with our, paper timesheets and, getting rid of the paper timesheets and getting us more automated and in the 21st century, finally. So helping Public Works and Health and other departments transition to Munis modules so that we can utilize Munis to its full potential is on my list for implementing it. On here I have 2023 and 2024, but really it'll be kind of an ongoing process and into 25, I'm sure. I put on here to delete the Skoke flood zone possibly and create lines within the road fund for that. I don't know if that's really a priority or not. It's just something that was a possibility that Loretta and I had talked about at one point. And then doing the same with the trial court improvement fund. Really, to be a special revenue fund, they need to have at least 20% of their revenue come from an outside source, and the trial court improvement fund doesn't meet that definition. So that's something we could easily change and put into the general fund. But again, it's kind of small potatoes in the big picture, but something we can do in 24 or 25.
As long as they still can see it clearly and have access to it. If not, we're going to have a little war.
Yeah, exactly. And then just archiving and digitizing records ongoing. And of course, something I didn't put on my list, but is always, at the top of the list, is adopting the budget by the first Monday in December. So this year it'll be December 4th. That's the goal. As a long-term goal that's also not on my list, consolidating the financial policy and related policies into one document. I would love to do that, kind of like the personnel policy, but for the finance side of things. We have our finance policy, but then we also have all these other policies that it references, so it'd be nice to have it in one document, but that's, again, going to be a long-term goal. And then picking Diane's brain before she retires. So that's high on the list. So that's about all that I have.
Just one request, aside from all this, if you can give me the information regarding ARPA funds. You may or may not be aware that Larry passed away. With that, if you don't mind, let me know what's still hanging out there so I can contact them to see that it doesn't get dropped.
Any other questions for budget?
Yep, pretty straightforward.
Okay. Diane, you want to jump through yours?
Sure. So the main thing happening in the administration area of our office is filling staff. As you know, we've had a turnover between the public records person, which we've had Cammie now for about 7 months. And then Cassidy and Annie were both poached by Cal.
I like the way that you shuddered.
Good for the county, they're great employees, but that means, turnover.
Have you ever seen what the law enforcement do? They throw out those little traps that with the nails and stuff on it for, yeah. And when you see her coming, we'll keep one by the front door.
She's been generous with Cassidy, she's been coming over to help trade, so I appreciate that. But we've used the NeoGov, I think we were the first office to use it all the way, and it has been helpful. Not only our applicant pool, but the whole process. Because you can push out an email and they schedule their own interview, and it makes it a lot more efficient, so it has worked well. And then also John and I are preparing for Ann's retirement out at Parks, so we'll be posting that this week. I hope to poach somebody back maybe, but we'll see. And then, of course,
It's super fun to work in community development, by the way.
and then
And I'm fully staffed.
preparing the office for my retirement. And a lot of that is updating policies, procedures, forms, working with McKinsey closely on, how the processes work. She's done a great job. With that, we've digitized a lot of our records, and our paperwork footprint is now within our office. We send a lot off to archives after we've retained it for our 6 years, and a lot of it we can, scan and toss, so we've really done a lot of work with that. And then we have created a policy index because, as Jen said, a lot of our policies are here and there, and a lot of it is in those of us that have been here a while. We know we have a policy, and we know where it might be, but as we leave, that history goes. So we've created an index, and it's on the intranet, which TJ's worked hard on this year to create. That way, at least it's there, anybody can find it. And then some of this, yes, probably could be consolidated down, but at least we are making a good index of where everything is. And that's all I had.
Well, that's not all you have, but.
Yeah.
Well, no, I have staff here to say their parts.
So can we go back to the provide support to administrator one?
Yes.
Mark, talk a little bit about that and what, or Diane, Mark, both of you, what your thinking is. And
So really, it's just helping me manage all of the paperwork and the electronic files that come across my desk. Having an individual help with scheduling the board potentially and myself. I think that there's a lot of time spent in just administrative type duties like that could be better spent on focusing on coming up with solutions to issues that we address. Don't mind doing that work myself, but I do think that from an efficiency standpoint and from a cost-effective standpoint, that having somebody there to support, and I think we have capacity within the staff that we have within our office now to provide some of that additional support for the administration side of the Commissioner's office.
When you say you have capacity within what you have, what is that? What do you mean by that exactly?
So I think that the staff that we have within the Commissioner's office, meaning the individual that sits outside of the switchboard, has the capacity to do some of that work.
So you're talking about a job description change?
I think it's included within their job description.
We did change the front desk when we did this last hire. We split it apart, and part of that was to include some administration support. The problem is staff turnover is so high, we barely get them trained on what we need them to do, which is they do a lot of accounts payable, so we haven't been able to do that. And McKinsey and I have been talking even about how to relieve some of what I do to be able to learn more what will help Mark, so that we can train the staff on how to help him. Because a lot of it is just keeping him organized and doing the paperwork side that he shouldn't have to do, just because it takes a lot of time.
Well, it's not cost effective for the dollars that we pay.
It's not.
Correct.
And I've been encouraging him to go digital,
So,
but
how can we,
there's that bus. It's already now.
I mean, if you looked at his desk, come on,
But
I've tried.
is there an actual request in this conversation, and what would that request look like?
No, not at this point, not
Just
for me.
informational?
So
Yeah,
I'd really like you to put some effort into that, particularly because same conversation we had about Julie. We want Julie doing planner work
Right.
for the most part. You know, want you to be an administrator, want you to be successful, and I don't want you to, as much as you probably need to organize your desk, like maybe carve out an hour or two at some point to like clean that up a little bit for our own sanity. Like, there's probably a better,
I'm the last guy that can say anything, we all know that. They'd write out petitions in our office to get me to do mine, so they're afraid they're gonna get hurt as they go
But then
in.
you do, we bring in the rolling garbage cans,
that's
and
right,
let it
you
go.
just, you gotta commit to it. But I think just being able to, you know, have that person who's available to you to help you with those things is really important. You know, you are, I think by virtue of your position, you know, I mean, you are, I think our expectation is to be higher level, not in the weeds, kind of big picture, you know, policy development and implementation for the county. And so I'm really open to whatever that looks like. If it is something that you think that there's capacity currently with, that's fine. Not sure I agree with that in terms of like level of ability, and you know, I just don't know enough to say that that's the case. But you know, if there is an ask for a bona fide support position for the administrator, then I'd be totally open to that conversation too.
We have a large list of things to look at as we transition into 2024. So come end of 2024, when Diane gets to go have fun full-time, I think that is something that we're going to have to factor into this process, for sure.
And so Diane is not having fun full-time right now?
Well, she's probably about three-quarter time having fun, but yeah.
On Fridays and Saturdays.
Every other Friday.
So I'm concerned because it is 11:59, and there are some items on there that definitely want to. I think that through our budget process, we'll be able to capture some of these issues that we need to do, but I also want to respect Diedrich's time. He needs to get all packed up and get out of here and get us on again at 1 o'clock for our budget discussion this afternoon. So I apologize to our
Mine's pretty
staff.
easy.
that-
Mine's pretty cut and dried.
Pretty straightforward in terms of the material that's presented. I think the big thing that's on my list is Building 10, our district court. I do think that there's some additional ARPA funds that are available that I'd like to discuss with the board in utilizing. We initially thought it was going to be about $1 million. It's probably about $2.2 million to finish that project out. And so I think that there is some additional ARPA funds that Jen has talked about that I'd like to dedicate towards that process. It is a one-time cost. And then getting the district court into that new facility and utilizing that facility is super important to us.
Well, and then the next step is what do we do in the courthouse too? So, you know, I think those are discussions that I'd like us to have for sure.
Absolutely. So we are constantly looking at how do we expand some of the facilities, some of the staff that we have. I know Foundational Public Health Model is providing some additional funding for some additional resources, but where do we put those people? Because they can't fit in that building right now. We converted all the closets that are there. So we really do need to start thinking about, as we grow in Mason County, what does that look like and where do we want to expand to?
Just never forget, is you'll deal with more than we will, Commissioner. That is not always something that they want. So we need to pay attention to that as we move forward with any of that.
There's definitely some items listed on the emergency management and parks and trails stuff that, again, I think we can talk about during our budget deliberations. Anything in information technology, TJ, that you'd want to?
The only thing I really want to address is we'd like to schedule an executive session with the commission and legal and risk. I have a cybersecurity desktop exercise that I'd like to work through with all of you. I think it raises some interesting questions that should be decided on before we need to know the answer.
Before we're in the middle of one?
Yeah.
Yes.
So you want that ASAP? Yeah?
When we make it work.
Okay, Diane.
Make it so, number one. That's what you just said.
Yep.
Emergency management and parks and trails, did you want to highlight anything there that we can't in our budget narrative?
I would like to add a couple things as the commissioners were talking about. The cybersecurity group is a good example of how we partner together for low cost to get us established, because now with that group being formalized, they can get assistance from Department of Defense, Department of Interior. I mean, if we had a problem today, all we have to do is call, which is different without that group being established, because since it's established through the Department of Homeland Security, it now has those assistance packages that go with everybody else for free, that without it, they're not. If you call them, there's a cost for that. And it gives us the ability that if we are hacked or if we are broken into, we can declare a disaster, which without it, we wouldn't be able to do. So it's an important piece when we start looking at how we partner together for resilience, because if you look at the federal government's definition of resilience, it's huge. It covers virtually anything that protects lives and livelihoods. So it can go into the 16 categories of critical infrastructure, which is everything we virtually have in the county. So you can do restaurants, you can do virtually anything as critical infrastructure, as long as it can be designated for life safety and property protection.
Aside that note, with our insurance through risk, we probably have some things we have to establish and work through process-wise in order to be covered and get insurance if we do have that attack. So we probably need to look at that, figure out what that is, and make sure that gets put into place.
So anything else?
Just the one thing that I had left on my list that we really didn't have a chance to get into, and I think this is a cross-departmental thing.
Okay.
But mostly kind of rests with IT, and maybe this is an IT steering committee conversation, but I wanted to kind of cue it up here is, you know, sort of as we see the development of AI and different technologies, figuring out how we can utilize those to benefit the community and the government and the county in particular, whether it be a chatbot or other types of things. A couple of weeks ago, the Sheriff's Office brought to us an opportunity to use app-based reporting, you know, kind of evaluating those a little bit more, seeing what from that might be applicable to other departments and other constituent services and things like that. I think is another area that we need to kind of evaluate moving into 2024 and beyond, because I don't think that stuff is ever going to go away. And so I think we need to be on the front line of that, I think, a little bit more.
Sure. My 2 cents on that is I definitely would be open to that, but if the other departments want to do it, I still think they should bring it through IT first, and then it's IT that makes recommendations that because it will also ask them to look at costs. And
TJ and I have been talking about, we probably need to establish an AI policy of some sort, because we don't have any parameters out there right now.
Yeah.
I have a question. So on building 12, the city had a hearing
We're done.
They did.
We're in.
and we're in?
We're in.
Nice.
We're waiting for coolers from the corner, but other than that, she has moved in and we're moved in. And we are going to have an open house as soon as your cooler comes in. She wants to wait to have the coolers before she brings you out.
gotta have some place to store the champagne.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not going to be a show and tell.
Well, there is
you're
Bob's
my
around the corner,
favorite.
right?
You can't imagine what the swag on that looks like.
Yeah.
And the fiber upgrade project is ready to start anytime, isn't it? When that's ARPA funded?
Yeah, we should see some activity with that in the next 2 weeks, I hope.
That's pretty exciting,
That's cool.
really. Yeah.
That's a great.
And that's also utilizing Building 10 as our fiber hub. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. I love to see the direction we're going. I think it's becoming more, I think we were behind the times for quite a while.
Oh, yeah.
As far as,
Yeah, badly.
I was being nice.
Well, and
But
on
to see
that-
the direction that we're going,
Yeah, and on that IT committee, the one with cross jurisdictions, TJ's kind of taken the lead on a lot of stuff, and other entities have looked to the county on how, what we have in place. So that's been helpful.
That's cool.
Any other questions from the commissioners for our team?
Well, I'm sure we do down the road,
Yeah,
but.
lots of information, but we'll continue to get into some of the details this afternoon as we start going through budgets. So we'll see you this afternoon.
Thanks,
And
everybody.
it is
Thank you.
Zoom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It is Zoom, yes. So we can present things.